My wife had an Ivy League MBA. I was a dropout at her promotion party. She announced, "My useless husband needs to sell his failing company to me." Her dad agreed. I left quietly, but next morning, when they came to take over, the champagne flutes caught the light like tiny prisms, scattering fractured rainbows across the marble floor of the hotel ballroom. I remember that detail with crystalline clarity, how something so beautiful could exist in a moment so ugly, how light itself could be broken into pieces and still appear whole from a distance. The party was in full swing by the time I arrived. I'd been late, caught up, finishing a conference call with clients in Singapore, but Amanda hadn't waited. Why would she? This was her night. Her triumph. The promotion she'd been chasing for 3 years had finally materialized. Senior Vice President of Global Strategy at Meridian Capital. At 34, she was the youngest person to ever hold the position. The invitation had said formal attire, but what it really meant was come watch Amanda ascend. I loosened my tie, not expensive enough, I was sure, for this crowd, and scanned the room. The usual suspects were there. Amanda's Harvard MBA cohort, her colleagues from Meridian, her parents. Especially her parents. Richard and Patricia Worthington stood near the ice sculpture, a grotesque swan that was already weeping into its silver tray. They saw me enter, and Richard's expression curdled like milk left in the sun. "There's the dropout," I imagined him thinking, though his face said it clearly enough. I wasn't actually a dropout in the traditional sense, but that's how Amanda's family had framed my story. I'd left Stanford after 2 years to launch a tech startup with my roommate. The company DataBridge Solutions provided cloud infrastructure management for mid-sized businesses. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't going to change the world or make me a billionaire. But it was profitable, sustainable, and it was mine. Amanda appeared through the crowd like a vision. She wore a dress the color of deep wine, something that probably cost more than my first car. Her dark hair was swept up in an elegant twist. Diamond earrings catching the light. She was beautiful. She'd always been beautiful. That had never been the problem. "You made it," she said, her smile not quite reaching her eyes. There was champagne on her breath, and something else. A sharpness. I'd started noticing more frequently in recent months. "I wouldn't miss it," I said. And I meant it, despite everything, despite the growing distance between us. Despite the way her success seemed to require my diminishment, I had wanted to be here for her. She took my arm, a performance for the room, and guided me toward her parents. "We need to do the toast soon," she murmured. "Try to look successful." The words landed like small cuts, clean, precise, the kind that don't bleed right away. Richard Worthington gripped my hand with the enthusiasm of a man handling a dead fish. "Marcus," he said, "my name, an accusation. Still running that little computer thing?" "The business is doing well, actually," I replied, keeping my voice even. "We just closed a contract with—" "How quaint," Patricia interrupted, her smile glacial. "Amanda was just telling us about the restructuring plans at Meridian. The complexity is simply staggering. Strategic oversight across 4 continents. I don't suppose you deal with anything at that scale." "Different scale, different challenges," I said, but I could feel the script we were all following. I was the supporting character in Amanda's story, the footnote, the before picture that made her after more impressive. A microphone squealed to life. Amanda's boss, Gerald Chen, stood on the small stage they'd erected near the windows. The New York skyline glittered behind him, a crown of lights for Amanda's coronation. "Ladies and gentlemen," Gerald began, and the room settled into attentive silence. "We're here tonight to celebrate an extraordinary achievement." I listened to him chronicle Amanda's rise through Meridian, her brilliant analytical mind, her strategic vision, her tireless dedication. All true, all deserved. I felt a complicated mixture of pride and something darker, something that tasted like ashes. Then Gerald handed the microphone to Amanda. She took the stage with the confidence of someone who'd been preparing for this moment her entire life. The applause was thunderous. I clapped too, my hands making hollow sounds. "Thank you all so much for being here," Amanda began, her voice clear and controlled. "This promotion represents not just my hard work, but the support of so many people. My parents, who taught me that excellence isn't optional." Richard and Patricia beamed, basking in reflected glory. My colleagues at Meridian, who challenged me to grow every single day. More applause. Someone near me refilled my champagne glass. I hadn't noticed it was empty. "And of course," Amanda continued, and something in her tone shifted. A new edge. "My husband, Marcus." The room's attention swiveled toward me. I felt it like heat. I raised my glass slightly, smiled, played my part. "Marcus and I have been married for 8 years," Amanda said. "And in that time, I've learned so much about what it takes to succeed, about the difference between potential and achievement, between trying and thriving." My smile began to feel painted on. Something was wrong. The air in the room had changed, become charged with a kind of anticipatory cruelty. "Marcus left Stanford to pursue a business opportunity," Amanda continued. "A startup, he called it. And while I was earning my MBA, building my career, climbing the ladder at Meridian, Marcus has been, well, running his little company." Little company. The words echoed. I saw people glance at each other. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked hungry for what was coming. "And I think that's taught me something valuable," Amanda went on, her voice sweet as poisoned honey. "It's taught me about the difference between those who talk about success and those who achieve it, between people who make excuses and people who make results." My chest tightened. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. So tonight, in addition to celebrating my promotion, I want to make an announcement. Amanda's smile was brilliant. Terrible. I've decided to expand my portfolio, to take on a new project, something that needs real business expertise, real strategic vision. She looked directly at me now. The entire room followed her gaze. "My useless husband needs to sell his failing company to me." The words hit like a physical blow. The room went silent, the kind of silence that's loud with shock and schadenfreude and barely suppressed gasps. "I've drawn up preliminary acquisition papers," Amanda continued, as if she hadn't just eviscerated me in front of 100 people. "DataBridge Solutions has potential, but it's been languishing under amateur management. With proper oversight, my oversight, it could actually become profitable." Amateur management. Languishing. Failing. My company employed 43 people. We'd grown revenue by 18% year over year for the past 5 years. We had client retention rates that would make most businesses weep with envy. But none of that mattered here, in this room, where Amanda's narrative was the only one that counted. "Now, I know Marcus might be reluctant," Amanda said, and she actually laughed. Light. Carefree. "Men can be so emotional about their little projects, but I think, with some persuasion, he'll see that this is what's best. For both of us. For our future." Richard Worthington stepped forward, champagne glass raised. "I think that's an excellent idea, Amanda. It's time Marcus learned from someone who actually knows how to run a business." He turned to me, his expression a mixture of pity and contempt. "Don't you think it's time to stop playing entrepreneur and let the adults take over?" The laughter that followed was polite but unmistakable. I stood there, a champagne glass in my hand, my wife on stage dismantling my dignity piece by piece, her father delivering the final blow, and I felt something inside me that I can only describe as a door closing, not slamming, closing, quiet, definitive, final. "Marcus?" Amanda prompted, still smiling. "Don't you want to say something?" Everyone was looking at me, waiting. Some faces showed sympathy, uncomfortable witnesses to a public execution. Others showed amusement, entertainment. This was the best show they'd seen in months. I could have defended myself, could have listed DataBridge's achievements, our revenue, our client satisfaction scores, could have explained that Dropout meant entrepreneur in any other context. Could have asked Amanda why she'd chosen this moment, this venue, this method to humiliate the man she'd promised to love and honor. But I didn't. Instead, I set down my champagne glass on the nearest table. The crystal made a soft click against marble. I looked at Amanda, really looked at her. and I wondered when exactly I'd become someone she could destroy so casually. When had I stopped being her partner and become her project, her embarrassment, her failure? "Congratulations on your promotion," I said quietly. My voice didn't shake. I was proud of that. "You've worked very hard for it." Then I turned and walked toward the exit. The crowd parted. No one stopped me. No one spoke. The only sound was my footsteps on marble and the distant clink of champagne glasses resuming their celebration. Behind me, I heard Amanda's voice, bright and unbothered. "Well, I guess we'll discuss this later. Now, where were we? Oh yes, I wanted to thank." The party continued. Of course it did. My humiliation was just an appetizer. The main course was Amanda's triumph, and it would be served regardless of who got crushed in the preparation. I stepped out into the Manhattan night. December air hit my face like a slap, sharp and clarifying. Snow had started to fall light, tentative flakes that disappeared the moment they touched the still warm pavement. Above me, the city blazed with light. Thousands of windows, thousands of lives, thousands of stories playing out in parallel. Somewhere in that vast complexity, my story had just taken a turn I hadn't anticipated. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. "Don't be dramatic. Come back inside." I turned off my phone. The subway ride home was a blur. I remember a busker playing violin, something melancholy and Russian. I remember a mother with 2 sleeping children, her face carved with exhaustion. I remember thinking about how many different kinds of breaking there were, how a vase shattered differently than a heart, how some things, once broken, showed you what was inside, and sometimes what was inside was surprising. We lived in a brownstone in Brooklyn that Amanda had chosen. Tasteful, expensive, a reflection of her rising status. I let myself in and stood in the dark entryway, not turning on lights. The silence was profound, the kind of silence that feels like it's waiting for something. I walked to my study, the one room Amanda rarely entered because it was cluttered with your computer nonsense. I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The screen's glow was the only light in the room. Blue, cold, honest. I had work to do. Because here's what Amanda didn't know, what Richard didn't know, what none of them knew. DataBridge Solutions wasn't failing. It wasn't languishing. It wasn't a hobby or a project or a little computer thing. 3 months ago, we'd been approached by Titanium Ventures, one of the largest tech investment firms in the world. They'd been watching our growth, our client retention, our innovative approach to cloud infrastructure management. They'd made an offer, a serious offer, the kind of offer that would have made Amanda's promotion look like a participation trophy. I'd been negotiating terms, quietly, carefully, waiting for the right moment to tell Amanda that her dropout husband had just been valued at somewhere north of $40 million. I'd wanted to surprise her, to show her that different paths could lead to the same destination, that leaving Stanford hadn't been a failure but a calculated risk that had paid off. I'd wanted her to be proud of me. How naive that seemed now. How utterly, completely naive. I opened my email and found the message from Titanium Ventures' lead attorney. The draft contract was attached. I'd been dragging my feet on finalizing it, partly because I wasn't sure I wanted to sell, partly because I wanted to discuss it with Amanda first. But now, in the darkness of my study, with the memory of her words still burning, my useless husband, failing company, amateur management, I saw the situation with new clarity. Tomorrow morning, Amanda and Richard would come to take over my company. They'd already drawn up papers, she'd said. They'd already decided my future. I smiled in the darkness. It wasn't a happy smile. Tomorrow morning was going to be very interesting. I began typing an email to Titanium Ventures' lead attorney. "I'm ready to finalize the deal. Can we expedite? I need this closed by tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Eastern." The reply came back in minutes. "Aggressive timeline, but we can make it work. We'll have the board sign off tonight. See you at 8 a.m. for final signatures." I sat back in my chair. Snow was falling harder now outside my window, visible in the streetlights. Each flake was unique, they said. each one different from every other flake that had ever fallen, each one following its own path to the ground. I was about to teach my Ivy League MBA wife and her condescending father a very expensive lesson about assumptions. The door was closed now, that quiet, definitive closing I'd felt at the party, and on the other side of it was a version of me that Amanda had never bothered to truly see, had never bothered to understand, had never bothered to value. She wanted to take over my failing company? By tomorrow morning, there wouldn't be a company left to take over. And the revenge wouldn't be in anger or shouting or drama. It would be in facts, numbers, documentation, the things Amanda claimed to value most. Truth, I was learning, could be the most elegant weapon of all. The clock on my desk read 11:47 p.m. when I heard the front door open. Amanda's heels clicked against the hardwood floor with the sharp precision of a judge's gavel. Each step was a declaration. Each sound a reminder of who held the power in this house, or who thought they did. I didn't get up, didn't call out. I stayed in my study, the laptop screen casting my face in blue light, spreadsheets and contracts reflected in my eyes like prophecies. Marcus, her voice carried from the entryway, still bright, still riding the high of her triumph. Marcus, we need to talk about your little scene at the party. My little scene. The phrase was almost admirable in its audacity. She'd humiliated me in front of 100 people, announced plans to take over my company without my consent, encouraged her father to mock me publicly, and I was the one who'd made a scene by quietly leaving. I heard her climbing the stairs. The bedroom door opened and closed. Silence. Then, minutes later, footsteps in the hallway. She'd noticed I wasn't in bed. Of course she had. Amanda noticed everything that didn't conform to her expectations. The study door opened without a knock. She stood in the doorway, still in her wine-colored dress, hair now loose around her shoulders. In different circumstances, in a different life, I might have thought she looked beautiful, but beauty, I was learning, was like champagne bubbles, sparkling and weightless, until you realized it was just trapped air, desperate to escape. "What are you doing?" she asked, not entering the room. She'd always treated my study like a quarantine zone. Too messy, too chaotic, too much evidence that I worked differently than she did. "Work," I said simply. I didn't turn around, didn't minimize the screens. Let her see what she'd never bothered to look at before the complexity of what I'd built. "At midnight?" She laughed, but it sounded tired. "Marcus, come to bed. We can discuss the acquisition in the morning. I know you're upset, but once you see the numbers I'm offering, you'll understand. This is actually good for you. For us, good for us." I let those words sit in the air between us like smoke. "What numbers?" I asked, still not turning around. I heard papers rustle. She'd come prepared. Of course she had. Amanda always came prepared. "I'm offering you $250,000 for full ownership of DataBridge Solutions," she said, her voice taking on that boardroom cadence, confident, final. "That's more than fair. It's probably more than the company's worth, honestly, but I'm feeling generous, and you'd stay on as an employee, obviously. Salary of $60,000 a year. That's actually above market rate for someone with your experience level." The numbers hung in the air like a bad joke. $250,000, $60,000 a year salary, for a company that was currently being valued at $40 million by one of the most prestigious venture capital firms in the world. I could have laughed, could have cried, could have turned around and shown her the Titanium Ventures contract open on my screen. But I didn't. Because this moment, this perfect crystalline moment of her absolute certainty in my failure needed to be preserved, remembered. It would make tomorrow morning so much sweeter. "I'll think about it," I said quietly. "There's nothing to think about, Marcus." Her tone sharpened. "Be realistic. Your company is barely profitable. You've been struggling for years. I've watched you stress about payroll, about contracts, about every little crisis. This is your way out. Take it. Barely profitable." The words were so divorced from reality that I wondered if she'd ever actually asked about my business, if she'd ever looked at the financial statements I'd tried to share with her, or if she'd just assumed that because I didn't work in a glass tower in Manhattan, because I ran operations from a modest office in Brooklyn, because I didn't wear $1,000 suits to video conferences, that I must be failing. Did you ever ask? The question came out before I could stop it. About Data Bridge? About what we actually do? About our revenue? Our clients? Our growth? This now that I can self-mild, DN, gentle rum, gentle rum, gentle rum, gentle rum, gentle rum, gentle rum, gentle rum. Silence, long enough that I finally turned around. Amanda stood in the doorway, papers in hand, her expression confused. I know what you do. You manage computer servers or something. Cloud storage. It's not exactly complicated. Not exactly complicated, I repeated. The phrase was a small miracle of condescension. Right. Marcus, don't do this. She sighed, the sound of someone dealing with a difficult child. Don't make this about ego. I'm trying to help you. My father agrees. Your father, I interrupted, thinks I'm a failure because I don't work in finance, because I left Stanford, because I'm not part of his world. And you've let him think that. Encouraged it, even. That's not fair. Isn't it? I stood up now, facing her fully. Amanda, when's the last time you asked about my day? About a deal I closed? About a problem I solved? When's the last time you treated my work as anything other than a hobby that embarrasses you at parties? Her face hardened. I treat your work exactly as seriously as it deserves to be treated. And if you can't handle honest assessment, that's not my problem. That's yours. Honest assessment. As if she'd assessed anything honestly. As if she'd looked at data, reviewed financials, understood the market. She'd assessed me based on optics, on comparisons to her world, on the story she wanted to tell about herself, the brilliant executive married to the struggling entrepreneur she'd eventually save. The meeting is at 9 a.m. tomorrow, Amanda said, her voice cooling to business temperature. My father is coming. We'll finalize everything then. I suggest you get some sleep. And Marcus? She paused at the door. Try not to make this harder than it needs to be. This is happening whether you like it or not. She left. The bedroom door closed, and I was alone again with my screens and my secrets and my plans. I returned to the Titanium Ventures contract. The attorney had sent updated terms. The deal would close at 8 a.m. at their offices in Midtown. Cash and stock options. Complete acquisition. I'd stay on as Chief Innovation Officer for 2 years, with a salary that made Amanda's generous offer look like lunch money. After that, I could walk away with enough money to never work again if I chose. Or I could start something new, build something else. The options spread before me like roads on a map, and for the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Possibility. My phone buzzed. A text from James Chen, my co-founder and CTO. James had been my roommate at Stanford, the one who'd left with me to start Data Bridge. We'd built this company together, through broke years and breakthrough years, through doubt and determination. The text read, Saw Amanda's speech. It's on LinkedIn. Someone recorded it. I'm assuming tomorrow's deal is definitely happening now? I typed back, 8 a.m. sharp. Bring champagne. The good stuff. The very good stuff. James and I had discussed the Titanium Ventures offer extensively. He'd been ready to sign for weeks. I'd been the one holding back, worried about Amanda's reaction, about our marriage, about changing too much, too fast. But tonight had clarified things wonderfully. Sometimes you needed someone to push you off a cliff to discover you could fly. I spent the next 3 hours reviewing every document, the acquisition agreement, the transition plan, the press release that would go out at 9 a.m. Titanium Ventures didn't do things quietly. They wanted to announce the acquisition as a major win, a scrappy Brooklyn startup that had built something valuable enough to warrant their attention. The press release was particularly satisfying. It included DataBridge's actual valuation, our revenue figures, our client list. All the data that proved Amanda's assessment wasn't just wrong, it was catastrophically, embarrassingly wrong. At 3 a.m., I finally closed my laptop. But I didn't go to bed. Instead, I walked to the window and looked out at Brooklyn sleeping under snow. The streets were white now, pristine, unmarked. In a few hours, the city would wake up and ruin that perfection, with footprints and tire tracks and the mess of daily life. But for now, it was clean, pure, a blank page. I thought about the 8 years Amanda and I had been married. We'd met at a tech conference where she was recruiting for Meridian and I was presenting DataBridge's early prototype. She'd been dazzling, smart, ambitious, beautiful. I'd been dazzled. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe I'd been so busy being dazzled that I'd never noticed she saw me as a project, not a partner. Or maybe she'd changed. Maybe the Amanda who'd married me, who'd seemed excited by my entrepreneurial spirit, who'd said she loved my passion, had been genuine. And maybe climbing the corporate ladder had transformed her into someone who measured worth in titles and salaries and the opinions of people like her father. Or maybe, and this was the thought that hurt most, she'd always seen me this way, and I'd been too in love to notice. My phone alarm went off at 6 a.m. I'd set it the night before, though I hadn't really slept, just dozed in the chair, my mind too active for real rest. I showered, shaved, dressed in my best suit. It wasn't Armani or Brioni or whatever Amanda's colleagues wore, but it was mine, and today, it would be enough. Amanda was already awake when I came downstairs. She sat at the kitchen island, perfectly composed in a charcoal business suit, drinking coffee and scrolling through her iPad. She looked up when I entered, taking in my suit with a flicker of surprise. "You're dressed up," she observed. "Important day," I said, pouring my own coffee. My hand was steady. That surprised me. "Good. I'm glad you're taking this seriously." She slid a folder across the counter. "These are the preliminary acquisition documents. Review them before my father gets here." I didn't touch the folder. "What time is he coming?" 9. "We'll go to your office together. Make it official." 9 a.m. The press release would already be out by then. The deal would already be done. DataBridge Solutions would already belong to Titanium Ventures, and I would already be several $1 million richer. "Actually," I said, "I have a meeting at 8. Downtown." Amanda frowned. "Cancel it. This is more important." "Can't cancel it," I smiled. It felt strange on my face. "But don't worry. I'll be back before 9. We can discuss everything then." "Marcus, trust me," I said, and the irony of those words was almost too much. "Everything will be clear by 9 a.m. I left her sitting at the counter, confusion replacing certainty on her face. It was a good look on her. She should wear it more often. The subway was crowded with morning commuters. I stood pressed against strangers, holding the rail, watching the darkness flash past the windows. Everyone around me was living their ordinary lives, going to ordinary jobs, having ordinary problems. And here I was, about to do something that would detonate my marriage, my life. Everything I'd known for 8 years. I should have felt scared, anxious, something. Instead, I felt calm, clear, like I'd been holding my breath for years and was finally allowed to exhale. Titanium Ventures' offices occupied 3 floors of a building in Midtown, all glass and steel and the kind of understated luxury that cost more than obvious wealth ever could. James was already in the lobby when I arrived, holding a briefcase and wearing a grin. "Ready to become disgustingly rich?" he asked. "Ready to become employed by someone who values what we built," I corrected. "That too." His grin faded slightly. "You okay, man? I saw the video." What Amanda said, that was brutal. "It was clarifying," I said. "Come on, let's go sell our company." The conference room was enormous. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of Manhattan that made you feel like you could see the curve of the earth. The Titanium Ventures team was already assembled. 3 attorneys, 2 executives, and Catherine Park, the CEO who'd been courting us for months. Catherine stood when we entered, extending her hand. She was in her 50s, gray-haired, sharp-eyed, with the kind of presence that made you sit up straighter. "Gentlemen," she said, "I'm delighted we're finally here. DataBridge Solutions is exactly the kind of innovative, well-run company we look for. You should be very proud of what you've built. Well run, innovative, proud. The words were medicine after poison. The next 45 minutes were a blur of signatures and handshakes and explanations of stock options and vesting schedules. James and I signed away our company and gained something bigger: validation, resources, partnership, the kind of exit that most entrepreneurs dream about and few achieve. At 7:52 a.m., Catherine raised a glass of champagne to DataBridge Solutions, to excellent leadership, and to a very profitable partnership. We drank. The champagne was perfect. Cold and crisp and expensive. Nothing like the champagne at Amanda's party, which now felt like it had happened in a different lifetime. The press release goes out at 9, Catherine said. We've coordinated with the major tech outlets. This will be front-page news in the business section. You're going to get calls, a lot of calls. Are you prepared for that? I'm prepared, I said, and I was. For the calls, for the attention, for what came next. For Amanda's face when she realized what she'd tried to take over. At 8:15, James and I stepped back out into Manhattan morning. Snow had stopped falling, but the city was still white, still clean. What now? James asked. Now, I said, I go home and wait for my wife and her father to try to take over a company that no longer exists. That's cold, Marcus. I love it. Not cold, I corrected. Accurate. There's a difference. I caught a cab back to Brooklyn, watched the city stream past the windows. Somewhere in those buildings, people were reading the press release. Tech reporters were crafting headlines. Industry analysts were noting that a small Brooklyn startup had just been acquired for $40 million by one of the most selective VC firms in the world. And in my house, Amanda was preparing to take over my failing company for $250,000. The cab dropped me off at 8:47. 13 minutes until the meeting. I let myself in quietly. Heard voices in the living room. Amanda and Richard, already planning my future. How to restructure, what to cut, how to turn my amateur operation into something worthy of the Worthington family. I stood in the hallway and listened. Just for a moment, just to remember this. The last few minutes before everything changed. Richard was speaking. Shouldn't take long. The company's small enough that we can absorb it into one of Amanda's portfolios. Might even be a good tax write-off if it's as unprofitable as it seems. I'll keep Marcus on for a while, Amanda replied. For morale. But honestly, he'll probably be happier. No more stress. No more pretending to be something he's not. Pretending. That word again. I checked my phone. 8:51 a.m. The press release would be live in 9 minutes. I walked into the living room. Amanda and Richard looked up, identical expressions of anticipation on their faces. They'd laid out papers on the coffee table, the acquisition documents, a pen, everything prepared for my surrender. Good, Richard said. You're here. Let's get this over with. I have a tea time at 11. I sat down across from them, smiled, waited. Have you reviewed the documents? Amanda asked, sliding the folder toward me. I have some documents of my own, I said. Would you like to see them? I pulled out my phone, opened my email, found the message from Titanium Ventures timestamped 8:02 a.m. Deal closed. Congratulations. Press release going live at 9 a.m. EST. 8:59. 1 minute. I held up the phone. This might interest you, I said. Both of you, and I waited for 9 a.m. to arrive and destroy everything they thought they knew. The clock on the mantel ticked. Snow fell past the windows, and somewhere in the servers of every major news outlet, a press release was queued and ready to publish. 30 seconds. Amanda frowned at my phone. What is this? Wait for it, I said softly. Just wait for it. 10 seconds. Richard reached for his own phone, probably to check his messages, to rush through this tedious business with his disappointing son-in-law. 5 seconds. The universe held its breath, and then, simultaneously, every phone in the room began to buzz. The phones buzzed like a swarm of mechanical insects. 3 devices vibrating against wood and glass and leather, each one delivering the same message, the same truth, the same detonation of everything Amanda and Richard thought they knew. Amanda looked at her phone first. I watched her face, really watched it the way you might watch a building collapse in slow motion. The way confusion arrives before comprehension. The way comprehension arrives before devastation. Her eyes widened, just slightly, just enough. Richard was already scrolling, his face reddening in that particular way. Wealthy men redden when the universe refuses to conform to their expectations. He read, reread. His jaw clenched so hard I could hear his teeth grind from across the coffee table. What? Amanda started, but the word died. She looked up at me, then back at her phone, then at me again. This can't be right. It's right, I said quietly. My voice was steady, calm. I felt like I was watching this scene from somewhere above my own body. Detached, clinical, every word of it. Richard found his voice first. He always did. Men like Richard never stayed silent for long. This is a joke, some kind of hoax. You faked this. I pulled out my phone and turned the screen toward them. The official Titanium Ventures website showed the press release in all its formal glory. Titanium Ventures acquires DataBridge Solutions for $40 meters. Brooklyn-based cloud infrastructure pioneer joins prestigious portfolio. New York Titanium Ventures announced this morning the acquisition of DataBridge Solutions, a rapidly growing cloud infrastructure management company, for approximately $40 million in cash and stock options. The deal, which closed at 8 a.m. EST today, represents one of the firm's most significant investments in the enterprise software sector. DataBridge Solutions, founded 8 years ago by Marcus Chen and James Chen, no relation, has built a reputation for innovative approaches to cloud infrastructure management for mid-sized enterprises. The company has demonstrated consistent year-over-year growth of 18%, with 2024 revenues exceeding $12 million and profit margins of 34%, exceptional in the competitive cloud services market. We've been watching DataBridge for some time, said Catherine Park, CEO of Titanium Ventures. Marcus and James have built something remarkable, a profitable, well-managed company with exceptional client retention and innovative technology. This is exactly the kind of entrepreneurial success story we look for. Marcus Chen will continue as Chief Innovation Officer. The text continued, but I watched Amanda's face instead. Watched the numbers sink in. 40 million, 12 million in revenue, 34% profit margins. Every figure a refutation of everything she'd said last night. Every statistic a slap. 12 million in revenue? Amanda whispered. She looked up at me. You told me. You said business was okay. You never said. You never asked, I said. Not really. You asked if I was getting by, if I was managing. You never asked for actual numbers. Never wanted to see financial statements. Never expressed interest in the business itself. That's not true. But her voice lacked conviction. She was scrolling through her phone now, finding the story picked up by TechCrunch, by Bloomberg, by the Wall Street Journal. All of them with the same headline, the same numbers, the same truth. Richard slammed his phone on the table. $40 million. He said it like an accusation. You're telling me you've been sitting on a $40 million company and you never mentioned it? I mentioned it constantly, I replied. I talked about DataBridge all the time, about our clients, about our growth, about the challenges we solved. You just weren't listening. You were too busy deciding I was, a failure to notice I wasn't. Don't you dare, Richard started. Last Thanksgiving, I interrupted, my voice still calm, still level. I tried to tell you about our new contract with Horizon Financial, a 3-year deal worth $4 million. You cut me off to talk about Amanda's quarterly results. At Christmas, I mentioned we were hiring 10 new engineers. You asked if I was sure I could afford that. At Amanda's birthday dinner in June, I brought up that we were being approached by acquisition firms. You laughed and said, "Don't count your chickens." The memories hung in the air between us, each one a small moment, insignificant on its own, but together they formed a pattern, a mosaic of dismissal. Amanda set down her phone. Her hands were shaking.
You should have told me, directly. You should have sat me down and explained.
I tried, I said, and I had. God, I had tried. 6 months ago, I asked if we could have dinner, just us, no phones. I said I wanted to discuss something important about Data Bridge. You said you were too busy with the promotion track, that we'd talk later. Later never came. That's not fair. Her voice was rising now, color flooding her cheeks. I've been working 80-hour weeks. I've been under enormous pressure. You can't expect me to remember every conversation about my career I finished. Every attempt I made to share my success with you. You're right. That's an unreasonable expectation, especially when you had time to draft acquisition papers to take over my company without my knowledge or consent. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. Richard recovered first. His face had gone from red to a dangerous purple. This is absurd. You're making yourself out to be some kind of victim. Amanda was trying to help you. We both were. If your company was so successful, why didn't you flaunt it? Why the modest office? Why didn't I perform success the way you define it? I asked. Why didn't I rent expensive office space in Manhattan? Why didn't I wear designer suits to video conferences? Why didn't I brag at family dinners about revenue and acquisitions? I leaned forward, meeting Richard's eyes directly for maybe the first time in 8 years. Because I was busy actually building something instead of performing building something. Because I focused on sustainability over optics. Because I thought, and this is the embarrassing part, I thought my wife would value substance over appearance, that her love wasn't contingent on how impressive I looked at parties. Amanda flinched. Actually flinched. Marcus, she said, and her voice had changed. Softer now. Careful. The voice she used in negotiations when she realized she'd miscalculated. I never meant. Last night, I was just trying to humiliate me, I offered. Mission accomplished. That's not what I was doing. No. I pulled out my own phone and opened LinkedIn, found the video someone had posted, Amanda's speech. Let me refresh your memory. I hit play. Amanda's voice filled the living room, bright and cruel. My useless husband needs to sell his failing company to me. The laughter that followed, her father's voice, let the adults take over. I stopped the video. The silence afterward was worse than any sound. 17,000 views so far, I said. Comments are interesting. Some people think it's funny. Others think you're a sociopath. The general consensus seems to be that I'm either the most patient husband in the world or the most pathetic. Amanda's face had gone white. I didn't know someone was recording. That makes it better? I asked. That you only plan to humiliate me in front of 100 people, not the entire internet? I was drunk. I was excited about the promotion. I didn't mean. Yes, you did. The words came out harder than I intended. You meant every word. You've been thinking it for years. I could see it. Every time you introduced me as my husband, he has a little tech thing. Every time you made excuses for why I couldn't make your work events. Every time you steered conversations away from my work because it embarrassed you. Last night, you just said out loud what you've been thinking all along. Richard stood up abruptly. I don't have to listen to this. You're being dramatic and self-righteous. So you sold your company. Congratulations. That doesn't change the fact that you've been lying to us about your success, hiding it, like you were ashamed of it. I wasn't ashamed of it, I said. I was ashamed of you, of how you'd react, of how you'd suddenly decide I was worth your time now that there was money involved, of how Amanda might finally look at me with pride instead of pity. The words landed like stones in still water, ripples spreading. Amanda stood up too, pacing to the window. Snow was still falling outside, heavier now. The world beyond our house was being slowly erased, made new, covered in white. I wished I could do the same to the last 8 years. Cover them over. Start fresh. So what now? Amanda asked, not turning around. You got your revenge. You made us look stupid. You proved your point. What now? This isn't revenge, I said. Revenge would have been taking your offer, signing your papers, letting you take over a company that didn't exist anymore, letting you discover you'd acquired nothing but debt and dissolved contracts. That would have been revenge. She turned. Then what is this? Clarity, I said. For both of us. You needed to understand what you were so eager to dismiss. And I needed to understand that the woman I married either doesn't exist anymore or never existed at all. That's not fair. Fair? I stood up now, facing her across the living room. You want to talk about fair? You announced at your promotion party your moment of triumph that you were going to take over my failing company. You enlisted your father to mock me. You drew up acquisition papers valuing my business at a fraction of what it's worth without ever asking to see actual financials. You never once considered that I might know what I'm doing, that I might have built something real, something valuable. My voice was rising now. I couldn't help it. The calm was cracking, and underneath was something hot and hurt and years in the making. You treated me like a charity case, I continued, like a project, like someone who needed to be saved from his own incompetence. And when I tried to tell you, when I tried to share my success with you, you were too busy, too important, too focused on your own career to listen. I was supporting us, Amanda shouted back, while you were building your company. I was paying the mortgage on this house. I was keeping us afloat. I was the stable one, the responsible one. You can't rewrite history just because you finally had one good exit. One good exit. I laughed. It sounded broken. Amanda, DataBridge has been profitable since year 3. We haven't just been getting by. We've been thriving, growing, succeeding. You just never noticed, because success doesn't count unless it looks like your version of success. Richard moved between us. Enough, both of you. This is pointless. He turned to me. You want congratulations? Fine. Congratulations. You're a millionaire now. You proved us wrong, but that doesn't erase the fact that you hid this from your wife, from your family. That's not integrity, Marcus. That's deception. I didn't hide it, I said. I lived it. Openly. I just didn't perform it the way you wanted. And the acquisition offer only came 3 months ago. I was planning to tell Amanda once it was finalized. I wanted to surprise her, to show her that different paths can lead to success. 3 months ago, Amanda said slowly. She was doing the math. 3 months ago was September, when I started talking about the promotion, about my new role. Yes. And you let me talk about being the breadwinner, about supporting your little business, about... She stopped. Understanding was dawning, cold and terrible. You were waiting. You were going to tell me after my promotion. Make it a celebration. I admitted. I thought we'd celebrate together. Your promotion. My exit. Both of us succeeding in our own ways. I thought you'd be proud, but I ruined it, she whispered. Last night, I ruined it. You revealed it. I corrected. There's a difference. You showed me what you really think of me, of my work, of our marriage, and that's actually valuable information. Painful, but valuable. She sank back down onto the couch. For the first time since I'd known her, Amanda looked lost. The confidence that usually armored her was gone, and underneath was something raw, something almost human. I didn't mean it, she said. The things I said last night, I was drunk. I was showing off. I was trying to be funny, to entertain people. It was stupid. It was cruel, but it wasn't real. It was real enough, I said. The words came from somewhere, Amanda. Drunk or not, showing off or not, you thought them. You believed them. You said them in front of 100 people, and your only regret is that someone recorded it. Richard's phone rang. He looked at it, silenced it. It rang again immediately. He answered this time, his voice clipped. Not now. A pause. I said, not now. He hung up and glared at me. That was the club. People are asking about the video, about what happened last night. about whether it's true that my daughter's husband just sold a company for $40 million right before she tried to buy it for pocket change. He said it like an accusation, like somehow I was the one making him look bad. The optics are unfortunate, I agreed, but accurate. Don't be smug. I'm not being smug. I'm being honest. For the first time in a long time, I'm being completely, brutally honest. And if that's uncomfortable for you, good. It should be. My phone rang. I glanced at it. Catherine Park from Titanium Ventures. I need to take this, I said. I walked into my study and closed the door. The conversation was brief. Catherine wanted to know if I'd seen the press coverage I had, if I was prepared for the media requests. I was, and if everything was okay given that she'd heard about the video from last night. I told her it was complicated but under control. The optics are actually working in our favor, Catherine said, her tone wry. Nothing makes a tech success story more sympathetic than a spouse who didn't believe in them. Very Steve Jobs garage mythology. The press loves it. That's not why I did this, I said. I know, but take the win anyway. You've earned it, both the money and the vindication. When I returned to the living room, Amanda and Richard were in heated conversation. They stopped when I entered. Marcus, Amanda started, and I heard something in her voice I'd never heard before. Something that might have been fear. We need to talk. Really talk. Not like this. Not with my father here. Just us. We'll talk, I agreed. But not now. I have calls to make. Press interviews. My team is waiting. This is a big day for them too. They deserve my attention. Your team, Richard sneered. The people you care about more than your own wife. The people who never called me useless, I corrected. The people who valued what I built. The people who didn't need me to wear the right suit or work in the right building to respect my work. Yes, those people. I picked up the acquisition documents from the coffee table. Amanda's offer. Her generous $250,000. Her $60,000 salary offer. I folded them carefully and handed them back to her. You should keep these, I said. As a reminder. A reminder of what? That assumptions are expensive. That numbers matter more than optics. That love without respect is just pretty words. I walked to the door, put on my coat. The same coat I'd worn to her party last night. The same coat I'd worn through 8 years of marriage to a woman who'd loved me less with every rung she climbed. Where are you going? Amanda asked. To my office, I said. To celebrate with people who actually want to celebrate with me. Marcus, wait. Please. We need to fix this. I paused at the door, looked back at her, really looked at her, and I realized that I didn't know this person. Maybe I never had. Maybe I'd been in love with potential, with projection, with the person I wanted her to be rather than the person she was. Some things can't be fixed, I said quietly. Some things are just broken, and maybe that's okay. Maybe broken is just another word for honest. I left them there, Amanda and Richard, father and daughter, both of them surrounded by papers that meant nothing, offers that had expired, assumptions that had shattered. Outside, the snow was falling harder. I stood on the steps of the brownstone and tilted my face up, let the flakes melt on my skin. Cold, clean, new. My phone buzzed with messages, congratulations from clients, interview requests from reporters, messages from James about the celebration planned at the office, and one text from Amanda, I love you, please come back, we can work through this. I looked at those words for a long time, tried to feel what I used to feel when she said them, but there was nothing there except a kind of hollow ache, the ghost of something that used to live in my chest. I texted back, I'm not sure you ever did. Love me, I mean. Not the real me, just the version of me that made sense in your story. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, that's not true. I didn't respond, because true or not, it was how I felt. And feelings, I was learning, didn't always need to be debated. Sometimes they just needed to be honored. I hailed a cab and gave the driver the address of DataBridge Solutions, our modest office in Brooklyn, the place Amanda had never visited because it wasn't impressive enough, the place where we'd built something worth $40 million while she was busy assuming we were failing. The cab pulled away from the brownstone. I watched it recede in the rear window. My home, my wife, my old life, getting smaller, more distant, and I wondered if this was what freedom felt like. This strange mixture of grief and relief. This sense of ending something and beginning something else. The driver caught my eye in the mirror. "Good day or bad day?" he asked. I thought about that. About Amanda's face when she read the press release. About Richard's anger. About 8 years of marriage dissolving in the space of 15 minutes. "Honestly," I said, "I have no idea." But my phone kept buzzing with congratulations, and the snow kept falling, and somewhere ahead of me was a team of people who wanted to celebrate what we'd built together. So I smiled. And for the first time in a very long time, it felt real. The DataBridge Solutions office occupied the second floor of a converted warehouse in Brooklyn. Exposed brick, industrial lighting. Windows that looked out over a street lined with cafes and boutique shops rather than glass towers. Amanda had visited once, early in our marriage, stayed 15 minutes, and never returned. "Charming," she'd said, in the tone people use when they mean the opposite. The cab dropped me off at 9:47 a.m. Through the windows, I could see movement. My team, our team. 43 people who'd believed in what we were building, even when my own wife had dismissed it as a hobby. I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, snow collecting on my shoulders. Behind me was the wreckage of my marriage. Ahead was validation, success, everything I'd worked for. So why did I feel hollowed out? Like I'd won a war by losing everything that made victory worth having? My phone buzzed. Another text from Amanda. "Please call me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." I silenced the phone and walked inside. The reception area erupted. James had clearly broken the news. People were cheering, clapping. Some were actually crying. Sarah from accounting threw her arms around me. "Is it true? 40 million? Marcus, is it really true?" "It's true," I said, and hearing myself say it made it real in a way it hadn't been before. We did it. All of us. This is everyone's win. More cheers. Someone had brought champagne, not the expensive stuff from the Titanium Ventures meeting, but good enough. Honest. James appeared through the crowd, 2 glasses in hand, his grin threatening to split his face. "To the man who proved everyone wrong," he said, handing me a glass. "To the team that made it possible," I corrected. We drank. The champagne was cold and sweet and tasted like vindication. James pulled me aside as the celebration continued around us. How bad was it? At home? Bad. I took another drink. Amanda and her father were there with acquisition papers. $250,000. They were planning to take over this morning at 9. "Jesus!" James whistled low. "What did they say when they saw the press release?" "Not much. A lot of shock. Some anger." Amanda tried to apologize. Richard accused me of deception. "Deception?" James shook his head. "That's rich. They try to steal your company and you're the deceiver." In their minds, they were helping me, saving me from my own incompetence. And now? Now they know better. I looked around the office, at the people celebrating, at the space we'd built. This place, everything we did here. It was never about proving anything to them. But I won't lie, it feels good that they finally see it. "Feels good?" James raised an eyebrow. "Marcus, you just sold our company for $40 million the same morning your wife was going to buy it for pocket change. You should be doing backflips. Why do you look like someone died?" "Because maybe something did," I said quietly. "My marriage, what's left of it." James's expression softened. He'd known Amanda as long as I had been at our wedding, had watched the slow erosion of our relationship over the years. "You want my honest opinion?" "Always. Your marriage died a long time ago. You just finally noticed the body." The words hit harder than they should have. Maybe because they were true. Maybe because I'd been avoiding that truth for years, hoping that if I worked hard enough, succeeded enough, proved myself enough, Amanda would see me the way she used to, or the way I thought she used to. She loved me once, I said. I think she loved me once. Maybe she did, but people change. She changed into someone who values the wrong things, someone who measures worth in titles and salaries and what other people think. You can't build a marriage on that. Sarah approached us, tablet in hand. Marcus, I'm getting interview requests. Bloomberg wants to talk in an hour. TechCrunch wants a written statement. And, she paused, looking uncomfortable. Business Insider wants to ask about the video from last night. Of course they did. The video, Amanda's speech, the humiliation that had gone viral. It was the perfect narrative hook. Underestimated husband proves dismissive wife spectacularly wrong. The press would feast on it for days. Decline the Business Insider request, I said. Accept Bloomberg. And draft a statement for TechCrunch, focused on the technology, the team, the work. Nothing personal. You sure? James asked. This is your chance to really twist the knife. Tell your side of the story. I don't need to, I said. The facts speak for themselves. $40 million versus $250,000. The numbers are their own revenge. But even as I said it, I wondered if that was true. If facts alone could satisfy the part of me that wanted Amanda to understand, really understand what she'd done, what she'd destroyed. The Bloomberg interview happened at 11. A journalist named Rachel Kim called via video conference. She was sharp, prepared, and clearly aware of the video. Mr. Chen, she began, congratulations on the acquisition. $40 million is an impressive exit for a bootstrap company. Can you walk me through DataBridge's growth trajectory? I relaxed into familiar territory. Talking about the business was easy, safe. I explained our early days, the pivot we'd made in year 2 when our original model wasn't scaling, the breakthrough contract that had validated our approach. I talked about our team, our culture, our focus on sustainable growth over explosive expansion. You've been relatively quiet in the tech press, Rachel noted. No major funding announcements, no splashy product launches. Some might say you flew under the radar. Was that intentional? We focused on building rather than announcing, I said. On serving clients rather than courting coverage. It's not as exciting as the typical startup story, but it's sustainable. We were profitable by year 3 and stayed profitable. That mattered more to us than headlines. And yet, Rachel said, and I could hear the shift in her tone, you're making headlines now. There's a video circulating of your wife publicly stating that your company was failing and that she intended to acquire it. How do you respond to that characterization? I'd known this was coming, had prepared for it, but preparation didn't make it easier. My wife and I had different perspectives on what success looks like, I said carefully. She works in a world where success is very visible. Corner offices, titles, public recognition. DataBridge operated differently. We weren't flashy. We didn't market ourselves aggressively. I can understand how that might have been misinterpreted. That's generous, Rachel said. The video suggests more than misinterpretation. She called you useless, called the company failing. That goes beyond different perspectives. People say things they don't mean, I said, though the words felt like lies even as I spoke them, especially in celebratory contexts. I don't want to make this about my personal life. This story should be about DataBridge, about the team, about what we built. Fair enough, Rachel said, but I could tell she wasn't satisfied. One more question. There's speculation that you kept the Titanium Ventures negotiations secret from your wife. That you knew the company was worth significantly more than she was offering but didn't correct her. Is that true? I paused, thought about lying, thought about spinning it, decided on truth. The negotiations were private business discussions, I said. I planned to tell my wife once the deal was finalized. That's standard practice. You don't announce acquisition talks before they're complete. Even to your spouse? Especially to your spouse, if they work in the same industry. Conflicts of interest are real. It was a good answer, professional, reasonable. It was also incomplete. I hadn't told Amanda because I'd wanted to surprise her. Because I'd wanted one perfect moment where she looked at me with pride instead of pity. Because I'd been naive enough to think that proving my worth would fix what was broken between us. The interview ended. Sarah brought me coffee and a sandwich I didn't remember asking for. "You should eat," she said. "You look pale." I ate mechanically. The sandwich tasted like cardboard, but I finished it anyway. Fuel. That's all food was now. Fuel to keep moving through a day that felt simultaneously too long and moving too fast. My phone had 37 unread messages. I scrolled through them. Most were congratulations. Some were from people I hadn't spoken to in years, suddenly remembering we were friends. A few were from Amanda. "I need to talk to you. Please answer. I'm coming to your office." That last one was timestamped 12 minutes ago. I stood up quickly. "James, did Amanda call here?" "About an hour ago. I told her you were in interviews." "Why?" "She's coming here." James's expression hardened. Want me to have security stop her at the door? The idea was tempting, but also wrong. "No. If she comes, let her up. We need to talk eventually. Might as well be now." I retreated to my office, a small room with a desk, 2 chairs, and a window overlooking the street. Not a corner office. Not impressive by Amanda's standards, but mine. I'd negotiated my first major contract in this room, had stayed up countless nights here solving problems, had built something real within these walls. I watched the street below. Snow was still falling, transforming Brooklyn into something clean and quiet. A cab pulled up. Amanda got out, looking around at the neighborhood like she was visiting a foreign country. She wore her charcoal business suit and heels completely inappropriate for snow. She looked cold, lost. I felt something twist in my chest. Not quite sympathy. Not quite anger. Something more complicated. 5 minutes later, there was a knock on my door. Sarah opened it without waiting for an answer. "Your wife is here," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "Send her in." Amanda entered my office like she was approaching a minefield. Careful, uncertain. Her makeup was smudged around her eyes. She'd been crying. I'd never seen Amanda cry. Not at movies. Not at funerals. Not when her grandmother died. But she'd been crying now. "Hi," she said. "Hi." We stood there, 2 people who'd shared a bed for 8 years, suddenly strangers. "Your office is nice," she said, looking around. I didn't remember it being this nice. "You were here for 15 minutes 6 years ago, and you spent most of that time on your phone." She flinched. "I deserve that." "You deserve a lot of things," I said. "What are you doing here, Amanda?" "I wanted to see you, to apologize, really apologize, not over text." She moved closer, her hands twisting together, a nervous gesture. Amanda was never nervous. What I said last night, what I did, it was unforgivable. Yes, I agreed. It was. I was drunk. I was showing off. I wanted to seem powerful in front of everyone, and I made you small to make myself big. "That's very insightful," I said. "Did you rehearse that?" "Marcus, please." "Please what? Please forgive you? Please pretend this morning didn't happen? Please go back to being your embarrassing dropout husband who you can save with your superior business acumen?" "That's not what I want." Her voice cracked. "I want to fix this. Us. Our marriage." I sat down in my chair, suddenly exhausted. "Why?" "Because I love you." "Do you?" I asked. "Or do you love the idea of me? The version of me that fit into your story? The struggling entrepreneur you could eventually rescue? Because that version doesn't exist anymore, if he ever did." "That's not fair." "Fair?" I stood up again. Couldn't sit still. "You want to talk about fair? You announced at your promotion party that you were taking over my failing company. You valued my business at a fraction of its worth, without looking at a single financial statement. You called me useless in front of 100 people. Your father mocked me, and you laughed. And now that you know the truth, now that you've discovered I'm worth $40 million, suddenly you want to fix things. Suddenly I'm worth your time. It's not about the money, isn't it? I asked. If the press release had said DataBridge sold for $500,000 instead of $40 million, would you be here right now? Would you be crying in my office, begging for forgiveness? She opened her mouth, closed it. The silence was answer enough. I thought so, I said quietly. You're not being fair, Amanda said again. I made a mistake, a huge, terrible mistake. But we've been married for 8 years. That has to count for something. You can't just throw it away because of one bad night. It wasn't one bad night, I said. It was the culmination of years of disrespect, years of you treating my work like a hobby, years of introducing me as your husband who does something with computers, years of making excuses for why I couldn't come to your work events because I'd embarrass you. Last night wasn't an aberration, Amanda. It was the truth finally spoken out loud. She was crying openly now, mascara running down her cheeks in dark tracks. I didn't mean any of it. I was performing, playing a role, being who I thought everyone wanted me to be. And who did I want you to be? I asked. I don't know, she whispered. You never said. You just accepted everything. Every time I put my career first. Every time I dismissed your work. Every time I let my father insult you, you never fought back. You never demanded better. So I thought you were okay with it. The words landed like blows, because there was truth in them. I had accepted it, had tolerated it, had told myself that love meant accommodation, that being supportive meant being silent, that if I just worked hard enough, succeeded enough, proved myself enough, she'd eventually see my worth. But that wasn't love. That was surrender. You're right, I said. I should have said something, should have demanded respect, should have walked away the first time you introduced me as your dropout husband, like it was a charming quirk instead of an insult. Then why didn't you? Because I loved you, I said. Because I thought the woman I married was still in there somewhere. That if I was patient enough, if I proved myself enough, she'd come back. I'm still here, Amanda said. I'm right here. Are you? I looked at her, really looked at her, because I don't recognize you anymore. The woman I married valued passion over prestige, believed in taking risks. Thought success came in different forms. The woman standing in my office values optics over substance, measures worth in titles and salaries, treats her husband like an asset to be managed or a liability to be fixed. People change, she said. The corporate world changed me. The pressure, the competition, the constant need to prove myself. I became someone I didn't recognize. But I can change back. We can fix this. Can we? I asked. Because here's what I realized this morning. When your father was mocking me, when you were defending your decision to take over my company, I realized that I've been fighting for scraps of your respect for years, hoping that eventually I'd earn it. But respect isn't something you should have to earn from your spouse. It should be the foundation. And we don't have that. Maybe we never did. Amanda sank into the chair across from my desk, deflated. So that's it? You're giving up? After 8 years? I'm not giving up, I said. I'm accepting reality. We're not good for each other, Amanda. You need someone who fits your world, someone whose success looks like your success, someone who makes sense at your parties. And I need someone who values what I've built, who respects my choices even when they're different from hers, who doesn't need me to prove my worth every single day. I do value you, she said. I do. You value me now, I corrected. Now that you know the price tag, now that you know what I'm worth on paper. But 3 months from now, when the novelty wears off, when we're back to normal life, will you still value me? Or will you go back to treating my work as less important than yours? My time as less valuable? My success as less impressive? She didn't answer. Couldn't answer. That's what I thought, I said. My phone buzzed. Another interview request. The world was continuing. Business was happening. Life was moving forward, whether we were ready or not. I have a call in 5 minutes, I said. You should go. Amanda stood slowly, wiped her eyes, though it didn't help. Is there any chance, any possibility that we can work through this? I thought about that, about the possibility of forgiveness, of rebuilding, of starting over, and I felt nothing, no hope, no anger, just a vast emptiness where our marriage used to live. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I don't know anything except that I need space, time, distance from last night and this morning and everything that's happened. How much time? I don't know that either. She nodded, started toward the door, paused with her hand on the handle. For what it's worth, I am proud of you, of what you built, of what you achieved. I should have said that years ago. I should have seen it. Yes, I agreed. You should have. She left. I watched her through my window, emerging onto the street below. She stood in the snow for a moment, looking lost, then hailed a cab and disappeared into Manhattan traffic. I sat at my desk and tried to feel something. Relief, vindication, triumph. But there was only that hollow ache, the ghost of something that used to live in my chest. James knocked and entered without waiting. How'd it go? About as expected. Is it over? The marriage? I think it's been over for a while, I said. We just made it official. James sat down in the chair Amanda had vacated. You know what the worst part is? What? You were right. This morning when you made them see the truth, when you showed them the press release, that should have felt amazing. Epic. The ultimate I told you so moment. But you look miserable. I laughed. It sounded hollow. Turns out proving people wrong doesn't fix what they broke. No, James agreed. But it does close a chapter. And closing chapters is how you get to write new ones. My phone buzzed again. The Bloomberg journalist requesting a follow-up. TechCrunch wanting quotes. Titanium Ventures confirming tomorrow's schedule. New chapters, new possibilities. A life no longer defined by Amanda's expectations or Richard's dismissals or the constant effort to prove myself worthy of love that should have been freely given. The snow was still falling outside. The city was white and clean and new. And I was $40 million richer and completely, utterly alone. But maybe, I thought, alone was where I needed to start. The Bloomberg interview ended at 2:17 p.m. I know because I watched the seconds tick away on my computer screen, counting down to the moment I could stop performing competence and collapse back into the mess of what I actually felt. Rachel Kim had been professional, thorough. She'd asked good questions about market positioning and competitive advantages and growth strategies, all the safe topics. But at the end, just before we disconnected, she'd said something that stuck with me like a splinter under skin. Mr. Chen, I've been covering tech for 15 years. I've seen a lot of exits, a lot of celebrations. You don't seem particularly happy. I'm processing, I'd said. It's a lot to take in. Is it the money or the marriage? The question had been too direct, too honest. I'd deflected, thanked her for her time, ended the call. But now, sitting alone in my office, I couldn't escape it. Was I unhappy about the money? No. The money was validation, proof, evidence that I'd built something real. The marriage, then, the ending of it, the public spectacle of it, the humiliation and revelation and the smoking ruins of 8 years. Yes, that was it. That was the weight pressing down on my chest, like a physical thing. My office door opened. I expected James. Got Sarah instead. She carried a stack of printouts and wore an expression I'd learned to recognize over the years. The "we have a situation" face. What now? I asked. The video has 200,000 views, she said, setting down the printouts. It's trending on Twitter, LinkedIn. Someone made it into a TikTok with dramatic music. And, she paused, Amanda's company put out a statement. I picked up the top printout, Meridian Capital's official letterhead. The statement was brief, professional, carefully worded. Meridian Capital congratulates Marcus Chen on the successful exit of DataBridge Solutions. Miss Amanda Worthington Chen's comments at a private celebration were taken out of context and do not reflect her true sentiments or the values of this organization. We wish Mr. Chen continued success in his future endeavors. Out of context, I read aloud. Interesting. What context makes calling your husband useless and his company failing acceptable? None that I can think of, Sarah said. But they're doing damage control. Amanda's LinkedIn profile is getting hammered. People are leaving comments. Some supportive, most not. She showed me her phone. Amanda's post about her promotion, the same one that had been celebratory yesterday, was now a battlefield. The comments ranged from supportive, everyone makes mistakes, to savage, imagine being this wrong about your own husband, to philosophical. This is why we shouldn't measure people by conventional success metrics. The internet is having a field day, Sarah continued. There are think pieces about corporate culture and marriage dynamics. Someone started a hashtag, number DataBridgeRevenge. And, she hesitated, your mentions are blowing up. People want to interview you, profile you. Some venture capitalists are reaching out about your next project. I haven't even processed this project yet, I said. I know, but the world doesn't care. You're the story of the day. The underestimated husband who proved everyone wrong. It's catnip for the media. I looked at the stack of printouts, interview requests from major publications, speaking invitations, even a book deal inquiry, all because my marriage had imploded in the most public way possible. Decline everything, I said, except the technical publications. I'll talk about DataBridge, about the technology, about the team. But I'm not discussing my personal life. You sure? This is a lot of free publicity. Could be valuable for whatever you do next. I'm sure, I said. This isn't how I want to be known, as the guy whose wife humiliated him. I want to be known for what we built here, for the work, not the drama. Sarah nodded, gathering the printouts. For what it's worth, I think you're making the right call. The high road might not be as exciting, but it's usually the right one. After she left, I tried to work, responded to client emails, reviewed transition plans with the Titanium Ventures team, normal tasks, grounding tasks, but my mind kept wandering back to Amanda's office statement, out of context. What context could possibly justify what she'd said? My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something curiosity, masochism, fate made me pick up. Marcus Chen, I said. Marcus, it's Patricia, Amanda's mother. Her voice was tight, controlled, the voice she used when she was furious but trying to hide it. We need to talk. Mrs. Worthington, I said, keeping my tone neutral. What can I do for you? You can explain why you're humiliating my daughter publicly, why you're allowing this circus to continue, why you haven't made a statement defending her. I almost laughed. Almost. Defending her? From what? The truth? From this media-feeding frenzy, from people who don't understand the context, from her own words being weaponized against her. There was that word again. Context. Mrs. Worthington, I said carefully. Amanda said what she said. I didn't force her to say it. I didn't record it. I didn't post it online. Those were her choices, her words. I'm not responsible for the consequences. You ambushed her. Patricia's voice rose slightly. You knew the company was worth millions, and you let her believe it was failing. You set her up to look foolish. I set her up? The anger came sudden and hot. I told Amanda about DataBridge constantly, about our growth, our contracts, our success. She never listened, never asked for details, never wanted to see financial statements. She assumed I was failing because that fit her narrative. That's not my fault. You should have been more explicit, should have made her understand. I shouldn't have had to. I was standing now, pacing my small office. I shouldn't have had to prove my worth to my own wife. She should have respected my work without needing a price tag attached to it. She should have trusted that I knew what I was doing, but she didn't. She never did. And now she's embarrassed, and you're calling me to make it my responsibility to fix it. Silence on the other end. Long enough that I thought she'd hung up. Then, you're going to destroy her career. Is that what you want? Revenge? I don't want revenge. I said, suddenly tired again. I never wanted any of this. I wanted a wife who respected me, who valued what I built, who didn't need me to fail so she could feel successful. That's all I ever wanted. She does respect you. She respects $40 million. I interrupted. There's a difference. If DataBridge had sold for $500,000, we wouldn't be having this conversation. You know it, I know it, Amanda knows it. More silence. What do you want from me, Mrs. Worthington? I asked. A public statement saying it was all a misunderstanding? A press release defending Amanda? What? I want you to remember that she's your wife, that you made vows, that marriage means working through difficult times, not running away when things get hard. I ran away? The question came out sharper than I intended. I left a party where I was publicly humiliated, where your husband called me a failure, where Amanda announced she was taking over my company without my knowledge or consent. That's not running away. That's self-preservation. Richard was just trying to help. Richard was being Richard, I said. Condescending, dismissive. He's been treating me like a charity case since the day we met, and Amanda let him, encouraged him. So no, Mrs. Worthington, I'm not making a statement. I'm not defending behavior that was indefensible, and I'm not taking responsibility for Amanda's embarrassment when she earned it herself. I hung up. My hand was shaking. I hadn't realized how much anger I'd been holding, how much hurt. 8 years of small cuts and quiet insults and casual dismissals, all bleeding out at once. The office had gone quiet. Through my window, I could see the team pretending to work while clearly listening to every word. I'd been shouting. They'd heard. James appeared in my doorway. You okay? No, I said honestly, but I will be. Want to get out of here? Grab a drink? The team wants to take you out for a proper celebration. No press, no drama. Just us. The idea was tempting, but I looked at the clock. 4:30 p.m. I'd been at the office since 8 this morning. 9 hours of interviews and statements and phone calls and emotional confrontations. I was exhausted. Rain check, I said. I need to go home. Sleep. Process. Sleep. 1Z. You sure? Going home to an empty house might not be the best idea right now. It's better than the alternative, I said, which is going home to Amanda and pretending everything's fine. James nodded. Fair point, but call me if you need anything. Seriously, anything. I gathered my things. My laptop, my coat, the acquisition documents I'd signed this morning that had already changed everything. On my way out, I stopped by Sarah's desk. Tomorrow, I said, we start transition planning. Make sure everyone on the team knows their jobs are secure, that Titanium Ventures values what we've built, that this isn't the end of DataBridge. Just a new chapter, already on it. Sarah said, Marcus, for what it's worth, I'm proud to have worked for you. You built something real here, something good. Don't let the noise make you forget that. The words settled somewhere warm in my chest, reminded me why I'd done this. Not for Amanda's approval. Not for Richard's respect, for the work itself, for the people who believed in it. The subway ride home was strange. I kept expecting someone to recognize me, to point and whisper, to pull up the video on their phone, but nobody did. I was just another tired man in a suit, heading home on a Tuesday afternoon, anonymous in the great machinery of the city. The brownstone was dark when I arrived, cold. Amanda wasn't home. Probably still at work, managing the fallout, doing damage control, explaining to her boss and colleagues that the video was out of context. I turned on lights, made coffee I didn't want, stood in the kitchen that Amanda had renovated last year, all white marble and stainless steel, designed for a lifestyle magazine photo shoot rather than actual cooking, and felt profoundly alone. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Marcus, this is Catherine Park from Titanium Ventures. Wanted to check in. Big day. How are you holding up? I appreciated the gesture. Typed back. Surviving. Thank you for asking. Her response came quickly. I've been following the coverage. For what it's worth, you're handling it with remarkable grace. Most people would be making the rounds on every talk show, telling their side. Your restraint is admirable. Doesn't feel admirable, feels necessary. Sometimes they're the same thing. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we start the real work. I poured the coffee down the sink, climbed the stairs to the bedroom. Our bedroom. Though it didn't feel like ours anymore. It felt like Amanda's space that I occupied. Her taste, her choices, her vision of what a successful couple's bedroom should look like. I'd never noticed that before, or maybe I had and chosen not to see it. In my study, the one room that was mine, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The internet had, indeed, exploded. The video had spawned 1,000 think pieces. People were arguing about marriage dynamics and corporate culture and gender roles and success metrics. Some defended Amanda, some crucified her, most just enjoyed the drama. There were messages in my LinkedIn inbox, hundreds of them. Congratulations, commiserations, stories from other people who'd been underestimated by spouses or parents or bosses. It was overwhelming. This sudden community of strangers who felt connected to my pain. One message caught my attention, from a name I recognized but hadn't thought about in years. Professor Martin Walsh. He'd been my advisor at Stanford. The one who'd tried to convince me not to leave, who'd said I was throwing away my potential. The message was brief. Marcus, I saw the news. I owe you an apology. When you left Stanford, I thought you were making a mistake. I told you that you'd regret it, that you were choosing the wrong path. I was wrong. You weren't throwing away potential. You were pursuing it in a different direction. Congratulations on proving everyone wrong, including me, M.W. I read it 3 times, felt something unlock in my chest. Professor Walsh had been one of the voices in my head for years, one of the people whose disappointment I'd internalized. And here he was, admitting he'd been wrong. I typed a response, "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." His reply came within minutes. I've learned something in my years teaching. The students who succeed aren't always the ones who follow the prescribed path. Sometimes they're the ones brave enough to forge their own. You were braver than I gave you credit for. I closed my laptop, sat in the darkness of my study. Outside, snow was still falling. Brooklyn was quiet, the city's usual chaos muted by winter. I thought about bravery, about whether leaving Stanford had been brave or reckless, whether staying with Amanda for 8 years had been patient or cowardly, whether walking away now was strength or failure. Maybe it was all of those things. Maybe life was too complicated for simple labels. My phone rang. Amanda. I stared at her name on the screen. Let it ring once, twice, 3 times. Answered. "Hi," she said. Her voice was small, fragile. Nothing like the confident executive who'd stood on stage last night announcing my failure. "Hi," I said. "Are you home?" "Yes." "Can I come over?" "I just want to talk. Please, no agenda, no arguments. I need to see you." I wanted to say no, wanted to protect myself from another emotional battlefield. But something in her voice stopped me. Something that sounded like the Amanda I'd married, or thought I'd married. "Okay," I said. "But just to talk, that's all. That's all I want." She arrived 20 minutes later, still in her work clothes, but rumpled now. Tired. Her makeup was gone, and without it, she looked younger, more vulnerable, more human. We sat in the living room, on opposite ends of the couch, a gap between us that felt symbolic. "My mother called you," Amanda said. Not a question. "Yes, she shouldn't have done that. I told her not to." "Did you?" "Yes." She looked at me directly. "I know you don't believe me, but I did. I told her this was between us. That involving family would just make it worse." She didn't listen. "She wanted me to make a statement defending you." Amanda laughed bitterly. "Of course she did. Because God forbid the Worthington family look bad. God forbid I face consequences for my own actions. You sound angry." "I am angry," she said. "At myself, at my mother, at this whole situation. I spent all day in meetings explaining the video, reassuring my boss that I'm still capable of professional judgment, watching colleagues who used to respect me look at me with pity or amusement or contempt. "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I didn't enjoy her suffering. "Are you?" she asked. "Really? Because you have every right not to be. Every right to enjoy watching me squirm." "I don't enjoy it," I said. "It doesn't make me happy to see you hurt. It just makes me sad. About all of it." We sat in silence. The radiator hissed. Snow tapped against the windows like insistent fingers. "I talked to my therapist today," Amanda said suddenly. "Emergency session. She asked me why I said what I said at the party, why I felt the need to diminish you to feel successful." "What did you say?" "I didn't know." So she pushed. Asked about my relationship with my father, about growing up, about what success meant in our family. Amanda's eyes were distant now, remembering. "My father only valued measurable achievement," she continued. "Grades, titles, salaries, anything you couldn't quantify didn't count. And my mother, she enabled it, reinforced it, made everything a competition. So I learned that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned. That worth was something you proved, again and again, forever." "That sounds exhausting," I said quietly. "It is." She looked at me now, and somewhere along the way, I started treating you the same way my father treated me, making your worth conditional, needing you to prove yourself by my metrics, because that's the only kind of love I knew how to give. The confession hung between us, honest, raw, the kind of truth that only comes after everything else has burned away. "I don't know if that's an excuse or an explanation," Amanda said, "but it's the truth. I broke us because I'm broken, and I'm sorry. I'm so, so sorry." I wanted to comfort her, to say it was okay, to offer forgiveness and fresh starts, but I couldn't. Not yet. Maybe not ever. "I appreciate you saying that," I said. "But Amanda, understanding why you did it doesn't undo the damage, doesn't erase the video. Doesn't change the fact that for years, you treated me like I was less than you, like my work didn't matter, like I was an embarrassment you tolerated." "I know." "Do you?" I asked. "Because I need you to really understand. This isn't about one bad night. It's about a pattern, a fundamental lack of respect that I accepted because I loved you. But love without respect is just pain disguised as devotion." She was crying again, silent tears tracking down her face. "So there's no hope? No chance?" "I don't know," I said honestly. "Right now, I'm too tired and too hurt to know anything. I need time. Space. Distance from all of this." "How much time?" "I don't know that either." She nodded, wiped her eyes, stood up slowly. "I'll go. But Marcus, thank you for talking to me, for listening, for not slamming the door completely." "I'm not slamming it," I said, "but I'm not holding it open either. I'm just existing, trying to figure out who I am without being your disappointing husband." She flinched at that, but didn't argue, couldn't argue. After she left, I sat alone in the living room. The house was silent, except for the radiator and the snow and the distant sound of traffic. I felt hollowed out, empty, but also, strangely, lighter. Like I'd been carrying something heavy for so long that I'd forgotten it was there. And now, finally, I'd set it down. My phone buzzed one more time. A text from James. "Team wants to know when you're coming back. They're worried about you." I typed back, "Tomorrow. I'll be there tomorrow." Because life continued. Work continued. The world didn't stop spinning just because my marriage had collapsed. And maybe that was okay. Maybe that was even good. Tomorrow I'd start my new job at Titanium Ventures. Begin the transition. Meet with clients. Build something new. But tonight, I'd sit in the silence. Let myself feel everything I'd been avoiding. Let myself grieve what was ending, even as I acknowledged it had been dying for years. The snow kept falling outside. The city kept breathing. And I kept existing, one moment at a time. It wasn't triumph. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even resolution. But it was honest. And for now, honest was enough. I woke up at 5:43 a.m. to my phone vibrating against the nightstand. Not an alarm, a call. I reached for it in the dark, saw my brother's name on the screen, and remembered with sinking certainty that the story had gone national, international, probably. The internet had no borders. "Daniel," I answered, my voice rough with sleep. I hadn't really gotten. "Jesus Christ, Marcus." My younger brother sounded wired, awake in a way that suggested he'd been up all night. "I'm in Tokyo for a conference, and people are asking me about my brother's viral video. Do you know how surreal it is to have Japanese venture capitalists offering me sympathy about my sister-in-law? I can imagine." "Can you? Because from here, it looks completely insane. Amanda called you useless? At her own party? What the hell happened?" I sat up in bed. The room was still dark. Outside, Brooklyn was just beginning to stir. "It's complicated." "Complicated? Marcus, you sold your company for $40 million the same morning she tried to buy it for pocket change. That's not complicated. That's karmic justice." "It doesn't feel like justice," I said. "It just feels like everything ending at once." Daniel was quiet for a moment. Then, "Are you okay? Really okay?" The question landed differently than when other people asked it. Daniel knew me, had grown up with me, had watched me build DataBridge from the beginning, had been at my wedding, had seen Amanda and me in the before times when we'd seemed happy. "I don't know," I said honestly. "Ask me in 6 months." "Mom's going to call you," he warned. "She saw the video. She's furious. Dad, too. They never liked Amanda's family. They were polite about it." "They were Chinese about it," Daniel corrected, "which means they smiled and said nothing and judged silently. But now? Now Mom's ready to drive to Manhattan and give Amanda a piece of her mind." In Mandarin, very loudly. Despite everything, I smiled. "Tell her I appreciate the sentiment, but it's not necessary. You tell her. She'll call in about 3 hours. Be ready." We talked for a few more minutes. Daniel filled me in on the Tokyo tech scene, asked about Titanium Ventures, carefully avoided asking about the marriage directly. Before we hung up, he said, "You built something real, Marcus. DataBridge. That exit. Don't let the drama overshadow that. You earned this." After the call ended, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The house was too quiet, too empty. This bedroom, Amanda's bedroom, really, with its designer linens and carefully curated art, felt like a museum, a place where I was a visitor, not a resident. I got up, showered, dressed in a suit that fit better than it had yesterday. Or maybe I just carried myself differently now, straighter, less apologetic for existing. In the kitchen, I made coffee and scrolled through my phone. The story had evolved overnight. The tech press was now focusing on DataBridge's technology, our client retention rates, the innovation we'd brought to cloud infrastructure management. It was becoming less about my marriage and more about the business, progress. But the tabloid sites were still feasting on the drama. Someone had dug up photos from our wedding, from Amanda's Harvard graduation, creating a timeline of our relationship with captions like "Before the Fall" and "When Success Drove Them Apart." I deleted social media from my phone. All of it. Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram. I didn't need to watch strangers dissect my life in real time. My phone rang again. Not Daniel this time. Catherine Park. "Morning," she said. "Hope I didn't wake you." I was up. "Good. Listen, we need to talk before you come in today. The board wants to accelerate some of the transition timeline, get you more involved in due diligence for other acquisitions. Your instincts for sustainable businesses are exactly what we need." "Already?" I asked. "The deal closed yesterday. The tech world moves fast. And right now, you're the guy who built a $40 million company while everyone thought you were failing. That's powerful." VCs want your perspective on their portfolio companies. Founders want your advice. We want to leverage that. Leverage. The word tasted like metal in my mouth. I don't want to be the poster child for underestimated entrepreneurs. You already are, Catherine said, not unkindly. The question is whether you use that platform or let it use you. I vote for the former. She had a point. I could hide from the attention, or I could direct it, turn the narrative towards something useful, something that mattered. What did you have in mind? I asked. Come in early. 8:30. We'll talk strategy before the team meeting. And Marcus, congratulations. Your first day at Titanium Ventures should feel like a beginning, not an ending. But it felt like both. I was beginning something new while simultaneously watching my marriage decompose in real time across every media platform. Beginnings and endings, I was learning, weren't as separate as people pretended. The subway was crowded with morning commuters. I stood pressed against strangers, watching the darkness flash past the windows, and thought about parallel lives, about all the versions of myself I might have been. The one who stayed at Stanford, the one who never married Amanda, the one who sold DataBridge 3 years ago when a smaller firm had made an offer. Each choice had led to this moment, this train, this morning, this strange new life. A woman next to me was reading the New York Times on her phone. I caught a glimpse of the business section headline. DataBridge acquisition highlights the danger of assumptions in marriage and business. I looked away, focused on the tunnel walls blurring past, reminded myself that I was more than a headline, more than a viral video, more than the punchline to someone's think piece about modern relationships. Titanium Ventures offices looked different in the early morning light, less intimidating, more like a place where actual work happened, rather than a cathedral of capital. The security guard recognized me from yesterday, nodded me through with a knowing smile. Congrats, Mr. Chen. Saw the news. Hell of a way to celebrate. Thank you, I said, and wondered what news he meant. The acquisition? The video? Both? Catherine was already in the conference room when I arrived, along with 2 men I didn't recognize. She stood, extending her hand. Marcus, this is David Leung and Thomas Morrison. They run our enterprise software division. David, Thomas, this is Marcus Chen. We shook hands. David was around my age, sharp-eyed, with the kind of energy that suggested multiple espressos. Thomas was older, maybe mid-50s, with gray at his temples and the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen every possible startup disaster. We've been following DataBridge for 2 years, David said as we sat down. Your approach to client retention is something we want to replicate across our portfolio. 34% profit margins in a competitive market? That's not luck, that's strategy. It's culture, I corrected. We hired carefully, trained extensively, treated employees like partners rather than resources. Happy employees create happy clients. Expensive, though, Thomas observed. That level of investment in people. Cheaper than constant turnover, I said. Then rebuilding institutional knowledge every 18 months. Then the reputation damage of inconsistent service. We ran the numbers. Investing in people wasn't idealism. It was mathematics. Catherine smiled. This is exactly what I wanted the board to hear. Marcus approaches business differently. Not better or worse than traditional models. Just different. And right now, different is what we need. The next 2 hours were a deep dive into Titanium Ventures' portfolio. They showed me financials for companies they were considering acquiring, asked for my perspective on growth trajectories, on sustainability versus explosive expansion, on culture indicators that predicted long-term success. I found myself relaxing into it. This was familiar territory. Analyzing businesses, identifying strengths and weaknesses, seeing patterns others missed. This was what I was good at. What I'd always been good at, even when Amanda's family had dismissed it as that computer thing. At 10:47, my phone buzzed. A text from James. Media at the office. Bloomberg, TechCrunch. 2 cameras. What do you want me to tell them? I excused myself from the meeting. Called James directly. Tell them I'm unavailable for interviews, I said. that all media requests go through Titanium Ventures' PR team now, and make sure the team knows they don't have to talk to anyone. No one's obligated to comment on my personal life. Already told them that, James said. But Marcus, there's someone here who says she knows you. Professor Walsh, from Stanford? I blinked. Professor Walsh, is there? Yeah. Says he read about the acquisition and wanted to congratulate you in person. Should I send him away? No, I said. I'll come by. Give me 40 minutes. I returned to the conference room, apologized for the interruption. Catherine waved it off. First few days are always chaos, she said. Go handle what you need to handle. We'll reconvene this afternoon. The cab ride to Brooklyn gave me time to think. Professor Walsh showing up felt significant. He'd been the last person from Stanford I'd spoken to before leaving, the one who'd tried hardest to change my mind, the one whose disappointment had haunted me for years. And now, he was here. On the first day of my new beginning, the Databridge office was under siege. Not violently, but there were definitely news vans parked outside, reporters clustered near the entrance. I paid the cab driver, braced myself, and pushed through the small crowd. Mr. Chen, can you comment on Round? Marcus, how does it feel to? Is it true that your wife? I kept walking, said nothing, reached the door, and escaped inside. The office erupted in applause when I entered. My team, our team, standing and clapping like I'd won something instead of just survived something. Sarah approached with coffee and a sympathetic smile. They've been camped out there since 8 a.m., she said. Building security is threatening to call the cops if they don't disperse. Let them stay, I said. They'll get bored eventually. Professor Walsh stood near the windows, looking out at the Brooklyn street below. He turned when he heard me, and I saw that he'd aged since I'd last seen him. Gray hair, deeper lines around his eyes, but the same sharp intelligence in his gaze. Marcus, he said, extending his hand, thank you for seeing me. I know this is an inconvenient time. It's good to see you, Professor. Martin, please. I stopped being your professor 8 years ago, though I suppose I never stopped thinking of you as my student. We sat in my office, the same office where Amanda had cried yesterday, where I'd told her I needed space. It already felt like a different lifetime. I meant what I said in my message, Martin began. I was wrong about you leaving Stanford. I thought you were making a mistake, throwing away a promising academic career. I didn't understand that you were choosing a different kind of promise. You couldn't have known how it would turn out, I said. Neither could I. No, but I should have trusted you more. Should have recognized that intelligent people can take different paths and still succeed. Instead, I projected my own fears onto you. My own regrets about not taking risks when I was young. He looked around my office, at the modest desk, the filled bookshelves, the whiteboard covered in technical diagrams. You built something real here, he continued. Something sustainable, something that mattered, and you did it your way. That takes courage I didn't give you credit for. I had a lot of doubts, I admitted. Especially in the early years, there were moments when I thought maybe you were right. Maybe I'd made a terrible mistake. But you persisted. I didn't know what else to do. Going back felt like admitting defeat. Moving forward felt impossible. So I just kept working. One day at a time. One problem at a time. Until one day, I looked up and realized we'd built something worth building. Martin smiled. That's the secret, isn't it? Persistence. Not genius. Not luck. Just showing up every day and doing the work. We talked for another hour about Databridge, about his research, about the students he was teaching now, about the tech industry and how it had changed. It was comfortable, easy, like reconnecting with a part of my past I'd thought was closed forever. Before he left, Martin said, I saw the video, your wife's speech. I'm sorry that happened. That must have been painful. It was clarifying, I said, using the word that had become my mantra. Painful, but clarifying. Will you be okay? The marriage? I thought about that. About Amanda crying in my living room last night. About her confession about her father and conditional love. About the gap between us on the couch that felt like a canyon. I don't know, I said honestly. Right now, I'm just trying to get through each day without falling apart. That's enough, Martin said. For now, that's enough. After he left, I stood at my office window, watching the reporters below. They were thinning out, boredom setting in. By tomorrow, there would be a new story, a new scandal, a new public spectacle for them to dissect. My moment in the spotlight would fade. But the consequences would remain. The marriage, the hurt, the fundamental question of who I was now that everything had changed. My phone rang. My mother, right on schedule, just as Daniel had predicted. Marcus, tell me everything. Her voice was sharp, concerned, ready to fight my battles whether I wanted her to or not. Hi, Mom. Don't. Hi, Mom me. I saw that terrible video. Amanda said those things? About you? About your company? She did. A stream of Mandarin followed. Rapid fire. Blistering. I caught about half of it. Words about disrespect and family honor and how she'd always known Amanda wasn't good enough for me. It was comforting in its familiarity. My mother had the same reaction to every crisis. Fierce protectiveness and a willingness to burn down the world if it hurt her children. Mom? I interrupted gently. It's okay. I'm okay. You're not okay. Nobody is okay after that kind of humiliation. You should come home. Stay with us for a while. Let me feed you. You're too skinny. I wasn't too skinny. But my mother had been saying that since I was 12. Some things never changed. I can't come home right now, I said. I just started a new job. I have responsibilities. Job? She paused. Oh, the acquisition. Your father saw the news. $40 million, Marcus? 40 million? Yes. Another stream of Mandarin. This time impressed. Proud. She'd never doubted DataBridge the way Amanda's family had. My parents had trusted that I knew what I was doing, even when they didn't fully understand what I was doing. Your father wants to talk to you, she said. But first, tell me about Amanda. Are you divorcing? I don't know yet. Don't know? Her voice rose. Marcus, she publicly humiliated you. She tried to steal your company. What is there to know? It's complicated, Mom. It's not complicated. She showed you who she is. Believe her. Don't be like those foolish men in TV dramas who forgive terrible wives because of love. Love without respect is garbage. I almost laughed. My mother's relationship advice was always direct, always practical, always delivered with the certainty of someone who'd been married for 40 years and knew exactly how it should be done. I'll think about it, I said. Think fast. Before she makes you look more foolish. My father got on the line. His voice was quieter, steadier. Your mother is worried. I know. So am I. But I trust you to make the right decision. You've always made good decisions, Marcus, even when they looked wrong to other people. The words settled in my chest. Warm, grounding. My father had supported my leaving Stanford, had helped fund DataBridge in the early days when money was tight, had never questioned my choices even when he didn't fully understand them. Thank you, Dad. Come visit when you can. Your mother will cook too much food and ask inappropriate questions about Amanda, but we'd like to see you. After the call ended, I sat in the quiet of my office. Outside, the last of the reporters were packing up. The circus was moving on, and I was left with the aftermath. The real work of figuring out who I was now. James knocked on my open door. You good? Getting there. Team's asking about the celebration we postponed yesterday. They want to take you out. Properly this time. No press, no drama. Just us celebrating what we built. The idea was appealing, but I was exhausted, emotionally depleted, running on fumes and caffeine and the strange adrenaline of crisis. Tomorrow, I said. I promise. Tomorrow we'll celebrate properly. You sure? You look like you could use a drink. I could use a dozen drinks, but I need to stay clear-headed, need to think. James nodded, started to leave, paused. For what it's worth, I think you're handling this better than anyone could expect. You're not lashing out, not making it worse. Just existing with dignity. That's hard to do. After he left, I returned to Titanium Ventures for the afternoon session. More portfolio reviews, more strategic discussions, more thinking about businesses and growth and sustainability. It was grounding, useful, a reminder that life continued even when everything felt broken. At 6 p.m., Catherine dismissed the meeting. Go home, Marcus. Get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll dive deeper. But I didn't want to go home. Home was the brownstone, Amanda's space, the museum of our failed marriage. So instead, I walked through Midtown, through Times Square with its assault of lights and tourists, through Hell's Kitchen and down toward the water. I ended up at a park overlooking the Hudson River. The sun was setting, turning the water orange and pink and gold. Across the river, Jersey City glittered. And I stood there, a man who'd just made $40 million, who'd proven everyone wrong, who'd achieved everything he'd set out to achieve, and I felt nothing but tired. My phone buzzed, a text from Amanda. I know you need space, but I made an appointment with a marriage counselor. For us, next week. Will you come, please? I looked at the message for a long time, at the water, at the sunset, at the city breathing around me. Finally, I typed, I'll think about it. It wasn't yes, but it wasn't no. It was the truth. I didn't know what I wanted, didn't know if our marriage could be saved or if it should be saved, didn't know who I was anymore without being Amanda's disappointing husband, but I knew I needed to find out. The sun slipped below the horizon, the city's lights grew brighter, and I stood there, alone, watching day become night. Tomorrow would bring more interviews, more transitions, more decisions about my marriage and my future and who I wanted to be. But tonight, I just existed, in the space between ending and beginning, in the quiet between what was and what might be. And somehow, that was enough. The marriage counselor's office was in a brownstone in the West Village, the kind of place that charged $400 an hour and had a waiting room filled with abstract art that was probably expensive because it was ugly. I arrived 15 minutes early, because old habits die hard, and found Amanda already there, sitting in a leather chair that probably cost more than my first car, staring at her phone. She looked up when I entered, no makeup, hair pulled back, simply, dressed down in jeans and a sweater. It was jarring. I'd grown so used to corporate Amanda, the suits, the heels, the armor of professionalism, that seeing her like this felt like meeting a stranger who looked familiar. You came, she said, and there was genuine surprise in her voice. I said I'd think about it. You said you'd think about it, not that you'd come. I wasn't sure. I sat in the chair across from her. The waiting room was small enough that our knees almost touched. Almost. There was still that gap, that distance, even in close quarters. I almost didn't, I admitted. I walked past this building 3 times before I came in. What made you decide? I thought about that. About the text I'd sent my brother last night. Going to counseling tomorrow. Tell me I'm not insane. And his response, you're not insane. But you might be a masochist. Good luck. Curiosity, I said finally. I wanted to see if there was anything left to save, or if we're just going through the motions before the inevitable. Amanda flinched, but she didn't argue, couldn't argue, because we both knew it might be true. The door to the inner office opened. A woman emerged, mid-50s, gray-haired, with the kind of calm presence that suggested she'd heard every marriage disaster imaginable, and nothing shocked her anymore. Marcus and Amanda, she said, I'm Dr. Rachel Weinstein. Please, come in. The office was warmer than the waiting room, softer lighting. 2 couches facing each other with a chair between them where Dr. Weinstein sat. She gestured for us to sit on separate couches. The symbolism wasn't subtle. Thank you both for coming, she began. I know this isn't easy. Before we start, I want to establish some ground rules. This is a safe space. Everything said here is confidential. The goal is honest communication, not winning or being right. Can you both agree to that?" We nodded, agreed, though I wondered if Amanda and I were capable of honest communication anymore, if we'd ever been. "Good. Amanda, you made the appointment. Do you want to start by explaining why you felt counseling was necessary?" Amanda took a breath. Her hands were twisted in her lap. I did something terrible. At my promotion party, I publicly humiliated my husband, called him useless, called his company failing. It was cruel and wrong, and it went viral. And the next morning, Marcus sold that failing company for $40 million. "I see," Dr. Weinstein said, her expression neutral. "And how did that make you feel, Amanda?" "Embarrassed, ashamed, like the worst person in the world," Amanda's voice cracked. "I destroyed something I didn't even know was valuable. And now I'm trying to figure out if I destroyed it completely or if there's something left to rebuild." Dr. Weinstein turned to me. "Marcus, how are you feeling about all of this?" How was I feeling? The question was too big, too complicated. I'd spent the last week feeling everything and nothing, cycling through anger and hurt and numbness and exhaustion. "Lost," I said finally. "I spent 8 years loving someone who I thought loved me back, who I thought respected me, and now I'm realizing that maybe she didn't, that maybe I was just a project, something to fix. And now that there's nothing to fix, now that I've proven myself successful, I don't know who we are to each other anymore." "That's not fair," Amanda said. "I did love you. I do love you." Forded. "Do you?" I asked. "Or do you love the idea of not being the villain in this story, of not being the wife who dismissed her husband right before he made millions?" "That's not," Amanda started, but Dr. Weinstein held up a hand. "Let's slow down," she said. "These are important questions, but we need to approach them methodically. Marcus, you said you felt like a project. Can you elaborate on that?" I could. God, I could. 8 years of elaboration waiting to spill out. "Amanda and I met at a tech conference," I began. I was presenting DataBridge's early prototype. She was recruiting for her firm. We connected, started dating, got married within a year, and in the beginning, she seemed excited about what I was building, called it brave, innovative, said she admired my risk-taking. I paused, remembered those early days, how they'd felt real, true. But somewhere along the way, that changed, I continued. As her career progressed, as she climbed higher in her company, my work started to seem smaller by comparison. She stopped asking about DataBridge, started introducing me as her husband who does something with computers, made excuses for why I couldn't come to work events, and I accepted it, told myself she was under pressure, that once she achieved her goals, she'd have more bandwidth for mine. But that didn't happen, Dr. Weinstein observed. No, it got worse. Her family, especially her father, was openly dismissive of me, called me a dropout, a failure, suggested I get a real job, and Amanda never defended me, never corrected them, just let them believe I was unsuccessful because that fit the narrative, the brilliant executive married to the struggling entrepreneur. "Amanda," Dr. Weinstein said, "is that accurate, from your perspective?" Amanda was crying silently, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't think of it that way at the time. I thought I was protecting him from my father's criticism, not subjecting him to uncomfortable situations, but looking back, yes. I let them think the worst because it was easier than defending him, because part of me believed it too." The admission hung in the air, heavy, true, devastating. "Why did you believe it?" Dr. Weinstein asked gently. "Because success in my family only looked one way," Amanda said. "Corner offices, high salaries, prestigious firms. My father built his wealth in finance. My mother married money. That was the template. And Marcus didn't fit it. He worked from a modest office in Brooklyn, didn't wear expensive suits, didn't talk about his achievements. So, I assumed there weren't any, or at least not any that mattered by my family's standards. "Did you ever ask Marcus about his business directly?" Dr. Weinstein asked. "Request financial statements? Try to understand what he was building?" Amanda paused. "I asked if things were okay, if he was managing. But I never asked for specifics, never wanted to see the numbers. I think part of me didn't want to know, didn't want to confront the possibility that he was succeeding in a way I didn't recognize." Dr. Weinstein turned to me. "Marcus, did you ever directly tell Amanda about DataBridge's success? Show her financial statements? Make her understand the scope of what you'd built?" "I tried," I said, "but it was like shouting into the void. I'd mention a major contract, and she'd say, 'That's nice,' and change the subject. I'd talk about hiring new engineers, and she'd ask if I could afford it. Every conversation was filtered through this assumption that I was barely getting by. Eventually, I stopped trying. It hurt less." "So you both stopped communicating," Dr. Weinstein observed. "Amanda stopped asking. Marcus stopped telling. And the gap between you widened." We nodded, both of us, complicit in the slow death of our marriage. "Let's talk about the promotion party," Dr. Weinstein said. "Amanda, walk me through your thinking that night. Why did you announce you were taking over Marcus's company?" Amanda wiped her eyes. "I'd been drinking, a lot, and people kept congratulating me, asking what was next, what my plans were, and I wanted to seem powerful, in control, like I had everything figured out. So I said I was expanding my portfolio, taking on a new project. And Marcus's company seemed like the perfect example, something I could fix, something that would demonstrate my business acumen." "You saw his company as something broken that needed fixing," Dr. Weinstein said. "Yes." The word came out small, ashamed. "And Marcus, what went through your mind when you heard that?" I remembered the moment, standing in that ballroom, champagne glass in hand, the world tilting. "I felt erased," I said. "Like 8 years of work, of building, of proving myself, meant nothing, because Amanda had decided I was a failure, and nothing I did could change that." And her father agreed, laughed, called me a dropout, and Amanda laughed too, like my humiliation was funny, like I was the joke that made her promotion party more entertaining. My voice was rising. I forced it down, forced calm. And I realized, I continued, quieter now, that this was how she really saw me, not as a partner, not as someone building something valuable, but as an embarrassment, a problem to be solved. And in that moment, something inside me just closed, like a door, quiet, final. "Did you close it?" Dr. Weinstein asked. "Or did Amanda slam it?" "Both," I said. "She slammed it. I locked it." Silence. Dr. Weinstein let it stretch. Let us sit with the truth. "I want to ask you both something," she said finally. "Setting aside the video, the humiliation, the public nature of what happened, if this had been a private conversation, if Amanda had privately told you she wanted to buy your company, had privately called it failing, would you still be here?" I thought about that, really thought about it. "Yes," I said. "Because the public part isn't what hurt most. It was the revelation, the understanding that this was what she actually thought, what she'd been thinking for years. The public nature just made it impossible to ignore anymore." Dr. Weinstein turned to Amanda. "And you? If Marcus had told you privately about the $40 million acquisition before the party, would you have said those things?" "No," Amanda said immediately. "God, no. If I'd known." "That's the problem," I interrupted. "You would have changed your behavior based on the price tag. Not because you respected the work, not because you valued what I'd built, but because $40 million demanded respect in a way $200,000 didn't." "That's not fair," Amanda said again. "Isn't it?" I asked. "You drew up acquisition papers, valued my company at $250,000, planned to take over without my knowledge or consent. You did all that before knowing the real value. What does that say about your respect for my judgment? My business acumen? My 8 years of work? Amanda had no answer, because there wasn't a good one. Dr. Weinstein leaned forward slightly. I'm going to be direct with both of you. What I'm hearing is a fundamental breakdown of respect and communication. Amanda, you made assumptions based on external markers of success rather than actual performance. Marcus, you withdrew rather than demanding the respect you deserved, and now you're both sitting in the wreckage wondering if anything's salvageable. Is it? Amanda asked. Salvageable? Dr. Weinstein looked at both of us. That depends on whether you want to save the marriage you had or build something entirely new, because the old marriage is over. That's clear. The question is whether you're both willing to do the difficult work of creating something different. What would that look like? I asked. Honest communication, vulnerability. Amanda would need to examine why she measures worth in conventional success markers, why her father's approval matters more than her husband's dignity, why she felt the need to diminish you to elevate herself. That's deep work, possibly years of work. She turned to me. And Marcus, you'd need to examine why you accepted disrespect for so long, why you didn't demand better, why you thought love meant tolerating behavior that hurt you. You'd need to learn to advocate for yourself, to speak up, to walk away when something isn't working, rather than hoping it will magically improve. That sounds exhausting, I said. It is, Dr. Weinstein agreed. Marriage is exhausting when it's broken. The question is whether fixing it is less exhausting than ending it. We sat with that, the truth of it. I want to try, Amanda said. I want to do the work. I know I hurt you, Marcus. I know I failed you, but I love you. And I think what we had, what we could have, is worth fighting for. I looked at her, really looked at her. Saw the woman I'd married beneath the corporate executive, saw the vulnerability beneath the armor, saw someone who was, maybe, finally, being honest. I don't know if I love you anymore, I said. The words felt cruel, but they were true. I loved who I thought you were, who you were in the beginning, but that person either changed or never existed. And I don't know the person sitting across from me now. Amanda's face crumpled, but she nodded, accepted it. That's fair, she whispered. But, I continued, I'm willing to try to figure out if there's something left, something real, something worth rebuilding. I can't promise anything. Can't promise I'll fall back in love with you. Can't promise this works. But I'm willing to sit in this uncomfortable space and see if anything grows. Dr. Weinstein smiled slightly. That's more honest than most couples manage in their first session. The willingness to try, even without guarantees, is significant. We talked for another 30 minutes, about logistics, about expectations, about homework, yes, homework. Dr. Weinstein wanted us to each write down what we needed from the other. What we wanted our marriage to look like if we rebuilt it, what our deal breakers were. And I want you to operate from a place of honesty, she said. Not what you think the other person wants to hear, not what sounds good, but what's actually true, even if it's hard, especially if it's hard. When the session ended, we walked out into the West Village afternoon. The sun was bright, painful after the dim office. We stood on the sidewalk, uncertain. Thank you for coming, Amanda said, for trying. I didn't do it for you, I said. I did it for me, to know I didn't give up without at least attempting to understand what happened. She nodded. Can I ask you something? Okay. The video. Everyone's seen it now. My colleagues. Video. My boss. People I went to Harvard with. It's humiliating, and I know I deserve it. But is there any way? Could you make a statement? Something that clarifies? No, I said. Firm. Final. Marcus. No, I repeated. You want me to manage the optics, to soften the blow, to make you look better. But Amanda, this is your consequence, not mine. You said those things. You created this situation. I'm not going to rescue you from it. I'm not asking you to rescue me. I'm asking you to be fair, to acknowledge that people make mistakes. I've been fair, I said. I didn't go to the media with my side of the story. Didn't do interviews trashing you. Didn't turn this into a bigger spectacle than it already is. I've been quiet, dignified, focused on the work rather than the drama. That's all the fairness you get. Her face hardened, just slightly, a flash of the Amanda from the party. So you get to be the hero, and I'm the villain. You made yourself the villain, I said. I'm just refusing to rewrite the story to make you comfortable. That's not what marriage is supposed to be, she said. We're supposed to protect each other, support each other. With basically done, Dan with Quas, become one. You're right, I agreed. That is what marriage is supposed to be. Remember that the next time you're at a party deciding whether to humiliate your spouse for entertainment? I walked away, didn't look back, heard her call my name but kept walking, because some conversations didn't have good endings. Some conversations just ended. I walked for blocks, through the West Village, through Chelsea, eventually ending up at the High Line, the elevated park that snaked through Manhattan. I sat on a bench and watched tourists and couples and families stream past, all those lives, all those stories, all that complexity. My phone buzzed, a text from James. How'd counseling go? Brutal, honest, exhausting. Worth it? I thought about that. About Amanda crying. About admitting I didn't know if I loved her anymore. About the homework waiting. The work ahead. Ask me in 6 months. I typed back. Another text came in. This one from Catherine at Titanium Ventures. Quick question. Are you available for dinner tonight? One of our board members wants to meet you. Potential opportunity. Work. Forward momentum. The future rather than the past. What time? I responded. 7. Midtown. Formal. I checked my watch. 4:47 p.m. Enough time to go home, change, prepare. To shift from marriage counseling to business dinner. From emotional wreckage to professional opportunity. This was my life now. Compartmentalized, segmented. The personal and professional existing in parallel but rarely touching. It felt sustainable, manageable, honest. I stood up from the bench, joined the flow of people on the High Line, let the current carry me forward, because standing still wasn't an option. Wallowing wasn't productive. The only direction was forward, even when you didn't know where forward led. My phone buzzed again. I'm sorry for asking you to make a statement. You're right. This is my consequence. I need to own it. I stared at the message, at the apology, at the acknowledgement, typed back. Thank you for saying that. It wasn't forgiveness, wasn't reconciliation, but it was something. A small step toward honesty, toward accountability. Maybe that was all we could manage right now. Small steps, honest words, the difficult work of acknowledging what was broken before attempting to fix it. The sun was lower now, golden. The city was beautiful in that magic hour light, and I was walking through it, alone but not lonely, hurt but not broken, changed but not destroyed. I thought about Dr. Weinstein's question. Was fixing the marriage less exhausting than ending it? I still didn't know, but I was willing to find out. That evening, at the business dinner, I met Kenneth Wu, a board member of Titanium Ventures who ran his own investment firm. He was sharp, curious, and asked intelligent questions about DataBridge's growth strategy. I heard about the video, he said over dessert. That must have been difficult. It was clarifying, I said. The phrase that had become my shield. My explanation for the inexplicable. Good word. Kenneth said, clarity is underrated. Most people spend their lives avoiding it. But you can't build anything real, not businesses, not relationships, not lives without it. He raised his glass. To clarity, however it arrives. I raised mine. To clarity, we drank. And I thought about all the different ways truth could arrive. Sometimes it came gently. Sometimes it came like a wrecking ball. Sometimes it came in a viral video that destroyed everything you thought you knew about your marriage, but it always came. Eventually. Inevitably. And what you did with it, how you responded, how you rebuilt, how you moved forward, that was the real test. Not of success, not of strength, of character. The dinner ended at 9:30. I took a cab back to Brooklyn, to the brownstone, to the house that was supposed to be home but felt more like a museum of a relationship that might not survive. Amanda wasn't there. Still at work, probably. Managing fallout. Doing damage control. I went to my study. Opened my laptop. Started working on Dr. Weinstein's homework. What do I need from Amanda? I stared at the blank document for a long time. Finally, I typed, respect. Real respect. Not contingent on my net worth or conventional markers of success. Respect for my choices, my work, my path, even when it looks different from hers. I paused, continued typing, and honesty. About her feelings, about her family, about what she really wants from life and from me. No more performing, no more pretending. Just truth, even when it's ugly. The document stared back at me. 2 simple requests that felt impossible. But maybe that was the point. Maybe marriage counseling was about discovering whether impossible was just difficult or actually unachievable. I saved the document, closed my laptop, sat in the darkness of my study, and waited for tomorrow to arrive with its own challenges, its own revelations, its own small steps toward whatever came next. The Titanium Ventures offices had floor-to-ceiling windows that turned the city into a living painting. I stood at one of them on Thursday morning, coffee in hand, watching the way morning light transformed Manhattan from gray to gold. It had been 2 weeks since the acquisition, 2 weeks since the video, 2 weeks since everything changed. The media frenzy had finally started to fade. Yesterday, there were only 3 interview requests instead of 30. The reporters had moved on to the next scandal, the next spectacle. But the consequences lingered like smoke after a fire invisible but still there, still affecting how you breathed. Marcus, Catherine's voice pulled me from the window. We need to talk about the Helix acquisition. I turned. She stood in the doorway of the conference room, holding a tablet, wearing an expression I'd learned to recognize. The "we have a problem and I need your brain" face. Helix Technologies was a startup Titanium Ventures was considering acquiring. They'd developed AI-powered customer service software. On paper, it looked impressive. Rapid growth, enthusiastic user reviews, a charismatic founder who'd done the TED Talk circuit. But something had been bothering me about their numbers. I followed Catherine into the conference room. David Leung was already there, along with 2 analysts I'd been working with. Spreadsheets covered the screen on the wall. Revenue projections. User acquisition costs. Churn rates. Walk us through it, Catherine said. What are you seeing? I pulled up the financial statements I'd been reviewing. The revenue growth looks spectacular. 90% year over year. But when you dig into the customer acquisition costs and lifetime value ratios, something's off. I highlighted a section. They're spending $3 to acquire every customer who generates $2 in lifetime value. That's not sustainable. It's what we call growth at any cost. And it almost always ends badly. David frowned. The founder says they're optimizing for market share. That profitability comes later. That's the story every failing startup tells, I said. Growth without sustainability is just expensive failure in slow motion. DataBridge taught me that. We could have raised venture capital, burned through it acquiring customers we couldn't retain, and looked impressive for 2 years before imploding. Instead, we grew slower but sustainable. Every customer we acquired had to make economic sense. I pulled up another chart. Look at their churn rate, 15% monthly. That means they're losing nearly half their customers every quarter. They're spending millions to acquire users who leave almost immediately. It's a leaking bucket, and they're trying to solve it by pouring water faster instead of fixing the leak. Catherine studied the numbers. So you're recommending we pass? I'm recommending we dig deeper before committing. Talk to their customers. Understand why the churn is so high. Look at employee retention. High customer churn usually correlates with high employee churn. See if this is a fixable problem or a fundamental flaw in their business model. "The founder won't like that," one of the analysts said. "He's expecting a quick decision. He's fielding other offers." "Then he should take one of them," I said, "because if we acquire a company with fundamentals this week, we're not investing, we're gambling, and $40 million is too expensive for a bet." Catherine smiled slightly. "This is why we wanted you. Everyone else was ready to move forward based on the growth numbers. You're the only one asking if the growth is real." After the meeting, I returned to my office, a real office now, with a door and a window and a nameplate. Strange how quickly the trappings of success had materialized. 2 weeks ago, I was working from a modest desk in Brooklyn. Now I had a corner office in Midtown. But the office wasn't what made me feel successful. It was moments like the one in that conference room, being listened to, having my expertise valued, being trusted to see what others missed. My phone buzzed. A text from Amanda. "Finished my homework from Dr. Weinstein. Want to exchange before next session?" The homework. I'd been avoiding thinking about it. Had written my initial list, but kept revising it, adding things, deleting things, trying to articulate needs I'd suppressed for so long that naming them felt dangerous. "Sure," I typed back. "Coffee tomorrow morning? Our usual place?" We used to have a usual place, a cafe in Brooklyn where we'd met for weekend breakfasts in the early years of our marriage. Before her promotion track consumed her weekends. Before my company consumed mine. Before usual became a word that no longer applied to us. "Yes," I typed. 8 a.m. I stared at the exchange. The careful politeness of it. Like we were colleagues coordinating a business meeting rather than spouses trying to save a marriage. Maybe that's what we'd become. Colleagues in the business of being married. Going through the motions. Following the process. Dr. Weinstein had warned us about this. "The work of rebuilding trust is often mechanical at first," she'd said. "Scheduled meetings, homework assignments, structured communication. It feels artificial because it is, but sometimes you need scaffolding before you can build something that stands on its own." My door opened without a knock. James walked in, carrying 2 sandwiches and wearing a grin that suggested trouble. "Lunch," he announced, dropping 1 sandwich on my desk. "And gossip. I don't want gossip." "You're going to want this gossip." He sat down, unwrapping his sandwich. "I just got off the phone with Richard Chen." Not my brother. A tech reporter who'd been covering DataBridge for years. He's doing a feature on exits that surprised the industry. Guess who's the lead story? "Please, tell me you declined." I told him to contact Titanium Ventures' PR team. "But Marcus, the angle isn't about the video anymore. It's about your business strategy. How you built something valuable while everyone assumed you were failing." He wants to profile the approach. The sustainability model. The focus on fundamentals over hype. I unwrapped my sandwich. That's better than the marriage drama angle. But I'm still not excited about more attention. Too bad. You're the story whether you want to be or not. Might as well shape the narrative. James took a bite, chewed thoughtfully. "Also, I heard through the grapevine that 3 VCs have reached out about funding your next venture." "I don't have a next venture. Yet. But you will. Guys like you don't retire at 36. You'll build something else. It's in your DNA." He wasn't wrong. I'd been thinking about it, about what came next after my 2-year commitment to Titanium Ventures, about problems that needed solving, markets that were underserved, ideas that kept me awake at night. But starting something new meant confronting a question I'd been avoiding. Did I want to build it with Amanda or without her? "How's the counseling going?" James asked, reading my expression. Slowly, painfully, honestly. That last one's good at least. "Is it?" I asked. Sometimes I think honesty is what killed us. If we'd kept performing, kept pretending, maybe we'd still be happily married. "You weren't happily married," James said. "You were comfortably numb. There's a difference. Happiness requires truth. Even when truth is uncomfortable, My phone rang. Daniel, my brother. I answered on speaker. Marcus, quick question. Mom wants to know if you're bringing Amanda to her birthday dinner next month. I'd forgotten about Mom's birthday. The family gathering that happened every year. Usually at a Chinese restaurant in Flushing. Always loud, always chaotic. Always an interrogation disguised as a celebration. I don't know, I said. It's complicated. That's what I told her. She said to bring Amanda anyway, because she wants to have words with her. Her exact phrase, in Mandarin, which sounds much more threatening. James was grinning. I like your mom. She's terrifying when she's protective, I said. Tell her I'll let her know. And to please not assault my wife, possibly soon-to-be ex-wife. Whatever. Will do. How's the new job? Good. Really good, actually. I'm doing work that matters, making decisions that affect real businesses. It's validating. And the marriage? Less good. We're in counseling, doing homework, trying to figure out if there's anything left to save. Daniel was quiet for a moment. You know what Dad told me once? He said the difference between a good marriage and a bad marriage isn't whether you fight, it's whether you fight fair. Whether you're fighting to win or fighting to understand. What are Amanda and I doing? I have no idea, but you should probably figure it out before Mom's birthday, because if Amanda shows up, Mom will definitely not fight fair. After the call ended, James and I ate in comfortable silence. Outside, Manhattan hummed with life. Sirens, car horns, the ambient chaos of millions of people pursuing their individual dramas. Can I ask you something? James said. And you can tell me to mind my own business. When has that ever stopped you? Fair point. Do you want the marriage to work? Really want it? Or are you just going through the motions because divorce feels like admitting defeat? The question landed like a punch, because I'd been asking myself the same thing for 2 weeks. I don't know, I admitted. Some days I think about the woman I married, the one who laughed at my jokes and believed in my dreams and made me feel like anything was possible. And I want that back. I want to find her again. And other days? Other days, I think that woman never existed, that I invented her, projected qualities onto Amanda that she never actually had, and trying to save the marriage is just refusing to accept reality. That's pretty bleak. It's honest, I said, which is apparently what Dr. Weinstein wants. James stood, gathering the sandwich wrappers. For what it's worth, I think you're asking the right questions. And whatever you decide, stay or go, I've got your back. After he left, I pulled up the homework document on my laptop, read what I'd written, added one more line. I need to know that Amanda loves me for who I actually am, not who she wishes I was, not who I could be with proper management, not the potential version, the real version, flaws and all. I saved it, felt the truth of it settle in my chest like a stone. That evening, I worked late, reviewed more portfolio companies, made notes on sustainable growth strategies, lost myself in numbers and projections and the comfortable logic of business analysis. At 9 p.m., my phone buzzed. Still at the office? Yes, you? Just left. First time I've left before 10. In 2 weeks. Feels strange. I could picture her, walking out of the Meridian Capitol building, the doorman nodding, the street busy with nightlife, her hailing a cab alone. How's work? I typed. The fallout from the video? Manageable. People have mostly stopped talking about it. Or they're talking about it when I'm not around, which amounts to the same thing. My boss was actually supportive, said everyone makes mistakes, that how I handle it matters more than the mistake itself. That's good. Is it? Because I don't know how to handle it. I apologized publicly on LinkedIn, acknowledged I was wrong, but it doesn't feel like enough, doesn't undo the damage. I thought about that, about apologies and consequences, and the gap between them. Some damage can't be undone, I typed. You just have to live with it. Let it teach you something. What's it teaching you? The question caught me off guard. What was it teaching me? That success doesn't look one way, I typed. That respect has to be unconditional. That love without honesty is just performance. And that sometimes the hardest thing is admitting when something isn't working instead of trying to force it to work. 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, are we talking about the video or the marriage? Both. Neither. I don't know. That's fair. See you tomorrow morning. At our usual place. Our usual place. The phrase still felt strange, like returning to a restaurant where you used to be a regular but haven't visited in years. Would they remember us? Would it feel familiar or foreign? I left the office at 10. The subway was nearly empty. Just a few night shift workers and people heading home from late dinners. I sat by a window and watched the darkness flash past, my reflection ghosting in the glass. My phone buzzed. An email from Professor Walsh. Marcus, I hope this isn't intrusive, but I've been thinking about our conversation, about paths and choices, and the courage it takes to pursue unconventional success. I'm teaching a seminar next semester on entrepreneurship. Would you consider being a guest speaker? The students would benefit from hearing your story, not the viral video part, the building something real part. Let me know. M.W. I read it twice. Felt something warm in my chest. Pride, maybe, or validation. The kind that came from being valued for the work itself rather than the spectacle surrounding it. I'd be honored, I typed back. Let me know when. The subway emerged from underground in Brooklyn. The city spread out before me. Lights and buildings and the bridge spanning the river like a promise. I thought about all the choices that had led me here. Leaving Stanford, starting Databridge, marrying Amanda, building something. While everyone assumed I was failing. Would I make the same choices again, knowing how it turned out? Some of them, not all of them. But maybe that was the point. You made choices with incomplete information and lived with the consequences, learned from them. Let them shape you into whoever you were becoming. The brownstone was dark when I arrived. Amanda wasn't home, still working probably, or avoiding the house the same way I was. The space where we'd perform marriage, while the real thing slowly died. I went to my study, opened the homework document again, stared at what I'd written, what I needed from Amanda, what I wanted the marriage to become. It all felt impossible, like asking for the moon while standing at the bottom of an ocean. But Dr. Weinstein had said to be honest, to name what I needed even if it seemed unattainable. So I added one more line. I need to believe that we can build something new. Not recapture what we had, not return to the beginning, but create something better, something real, something that honors who we actually are instead of who we thought we'd be. I saved it, closed the laptop, sat in the darkness. Tomorrow I'd meet Amanda at our usual place. We'd exchange homework, read each other's needs and wants and deal breakers, and maybe we'd find a path forward. Or maybe we'd finally admit there wasn't one. Either way, it would be honest, and honest, I was learning, was the only way to build anything that lasted. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Catherine. Great work today on the Helix analysis. You saved us from a bad investment. This is why you're here. I read it. Let it settle. Let it remind me that even when everything felt broken in my personal life, I was building something valuable in my professional one. Success, I was learning, wasn't one thing, wasn't one metric, wasn't measured by net worth or job titles or whether your marriage survived. Success was showing up, doing the work, being honest about what you saw, building things that mattered, even when the world wasn't watching. And if that meant sitting alone in a dark study at 11 p.m., nursing coffee and heartbreak and hope in equal measure, then that's what it meant. The radiator hissed. Snow was falling again outside, the city breathing through another night, and I breathed with it. One breath at a time, one moment at a time, one step toward whatever came next. The homework sat on my laptop, ready for tomorrow, ready for truth. I thought about Amanda reading it, about her reaction to my needs, about whether they'd feel achievable or impossible, about whether we'd look at each other across a cafe table and see partners or strangers. Part of me hoped for partners, for reconciliation, for the Hollywood ending where love conquered all and we emerged stronger. But a larger part of me just hoped for clarity, for truth, for the courage to see what was actually there instead of what I wished was there. Dr. Weinstein had said marriage counseling wasn't about saving marriages, it was about understanding them. Sometimes understanding led to reconciliation. Sometimes it led to peaceful dissolution. Both were valid outcomes if they were honest. I wanted honest. Whatever form it took, the snow kept falling. The city kept sleeping. And I kept existing in the space between what was and what might be. Tomorrow would bring answers. Or more questions. Or something in between. But tonight, I sat with uncertainty. Let it teach me patience. Let it remind me that some things couldn't be rushed, or forced, or managed into existence. Some things just had to unfold in their own time. I checked my email one last time, found a message from Sarah at DataBridge. Marcus, the team wanted me to tell you we're proud of you. Not just for the acquisition, for how you're handling everything, for staying classy when you could have been petty, for focusing on the work. You're teaching us what integrity looks like under pressure. Thanks for that. Sarah, I read it 3 times, felt something unlock in my chest. This was why I'd built DataBridge. Not for the money, not for the validation, for the people, for the culture, for the chance to show that success could look different, could be sustainable and ethical and human. And I'd done it, despite everything, despite the doubt and dismissal and casual cruelty of people who'd never bothered to look closely enough to see what was actually there. I'd built something real. And no viral video, no failed marriage, no public humiliation could take that away. I closed my laptop, turned off the lights, left the study, and climbed the stairs to bed. Tomorrow I'd meet Amanda, exchange homework, take another step toward whatever resolution awaited us. But tonight, I'd sleep, rest, gather strength. Because the hardest work wasn't building companies or making millions. It was building a life that felt true, a self that felt honest, a future that felt possible. And that work never ended. It just kept unfolding. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one moment of courage at a time. The snow kept falling outside my window, covering Brooklyn in white, making everything new again. And I closed my eyes and let the darkness take me. Tomorrow would come soon enough, with all its questions, all its possibilities, all its truths. The cafe hadn't changed. Same mismatched chairs, same chalkboard menu, same barista who'd made our lattes for years. But when Amanda and I sat down across from each other at 8 a.m., everything felt different. She looked tired, thinner than I remembered, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. "I brought mine," she said, sliding an envelope across the table. Her homework, her list of needs and wants, and deal breakers. I slid mine across in return. We didn't open them immediately. Just sat there, 2 people who'd shared a bed for 8 years, suddenly terrified of words on paper. "Before we read these," Amanda said, "I need to say something." I waited. "I've been thinking about what you said in counseling, that you don't know if you love me anymore. And I realized something. I don't know if I love you either. Not the real you. Because I never let myself see the real you. I only saw the version I needed you to be." The confession hung between us, devastating, honest. "So, what do?" I asked. "We read the homework. We see if what we actually need from each other is something we can actually give. And if it's not." She paused. "Then maybe loving each other means letting go." I picked up her envelope. She picked up mine. "On 3, she said. "On 3. We counted together. Opened the envelopes. Read in silence, while the cafe hummed with morning life around us. And in those words, honest, raw, impossible, we found our answer. Amanda's list was painfully honest. She needed someone who fit her world, who understood corporate politics, who made her family proud, someone whose success looked like success was supposed to look. My list was simpler. I needed respect that wasn't conditional on net worth, love that didn't require management, A partner who valued substance over performance. We sat in silence after reading. The gap between our needs was a canyon. "We can't give each other what we need," Amanda said finally. "Can we?" "No," I agreed. "We can't." She wiped her eyes. "So, this is it?" "This is it." The divorce was quiet, dignified. No battles over assets. We divided our lives the way you'd divide a business, fairly, methodically, without malice. Amanda kept the brownstone. I took enough to start fresh. 6 months later, I stood in a new apartment in Brooklyn. Smaller. Mine. The windows overlooked the bridge, and on clear mornings, you could see possibility stretching across the water. DataBridge's technology was integrated into Titanium Ventures' portfolio. James had launched a new startup. Professor Walsh's students had filled a lecture hall to hear about building sustainable success. And Amanda? I'd heard she was thriving at Meridian, dating someone from her MBA cohort. Finally, with someone who fit. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Mom's birthday dinner tonight. You coming?" "Wouldn't miss it," I typed back. I looked around my apartment, at the life I was building. Honest, real, mine. The story could have ended differently. With reconciliation, with triumph, with revenge. But it ended with truth instead. And truth, I'd learned, was the only foundation worth building on. Some doors close quietly. Some marriages end, not with anger, but with understanding. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from what's broken and build something new. I grabbed my coat and headed toward family, toward noise and chaos and unconditional love, toward whatever came next.